Hey there, and welcome to Crime for Sleep. I know you're having trouble falling asleep, so let me keep you company with true crime stories from around the world. Before we dive in, I'm curious, where did you first hear this one? If you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now get comfortable, and let's get into tonight's case. Crime 1, it started with faint scratching. I thought it was just rats or pipes settling. But one night I pressed my ear against the living room wall and heard a voice whispering, soft like a lullaby but wrong. I couldn't make out the words, only the rhythm. I tried recording it, but nothing ever played back. That wall became an obsession. I started tearing away at the drywall. Underneath was something worse than I expected. Symbols etched in blood, hundreds of tiny notches carved in desperate patterns, and a name I didn't recognize, repeated over and over. I don't know who lived here before, but I think they never left, and I think the wall is waiting for someone new. The name carved into the wall was carved deep, like whoever did it had plenty of time to work. The letters were uneven, desperate. I ran my finger along each groove, feeling the rough edges where the tool had scraped against the wood. There was something familiar about the handwriting, but I couldn't place it. I photographed everything before calling the police. The officer who responded was young, maybe fresh out of training. He examined the wall with a flashlight, his face scrunched in concentration. He told me it looked like vandalism from previous tenants, nothing to worry about, but I saw how his hand shook when he touched the carved symbols. He asked if I knew anything about the house's history, and I realized I didn't. I'd bought it through a property management company, never met the previous owners. I started digging through public records at the county office. The clerk, a woman with tired eyes and coffee-stained fingers, pulled file after file. The house had changed hands 6 times in the past decade. Each sale was quick, usually below market value. One family stayed only 3 months. Another lasted a year but left suddenly, abandoning their furniture. The clerk mentioned that pattern was unusual but not unheard of in older properties. The real estate agent who sold me the house was harder to track down. When I finally reached her, she sounded nervous. She kept clearing her throat and speaking in short sentences. She said she disclosed everything required by law, but when I pressed her about the previous tenants, she got defensive. She mentioned something about a family emergency that forced the last owners to leave quickly. Her voice cracked when she said it. I found the previous owner's forwarding address buried in the paperwork. The house sat on a quiet street lined with similar homes, all built in the same era. I knocked on the door and a woman answered with suspicious eyes. When I mentioned my address, her face went pale. She invited me in but kept glancing toward the stairs as if someone might be listening. She told me about the sounds. The scratching started soon after they moved in. Her husband said it was just the house settling, but she knew better. She'd grown up in old houses, understood their normal sounds. This was different. She started hearing whispers late at night, always from the same wall. Her young daughter began having nightmares, claiming someone was talking to her through the wall. The woman's hands trembled as she poured coffee. She said they'd tried everything, pest control, contractors, even had the electrical system checked. Nothing explained the sounds. One night, she found her daughter sitting by the wall, having a conversation with someone who wasn't there. The child said the voice was teaching her a song, but when asked to sing it, she couldn't remember the words. They decided to investigate the wall themselves. Behind the drywall, they found the carvings. The woman's voice dropped to a whisper when she described them. She said there were dates carved alongside the symbols, spanning several years. Some of the blood looked fresh, as if someone had been adding to the collection recently. That's when they called the police. The investigation lasted weeks. Officers interviewed neighbors, checked missing person reports, even brought in specialists to analyze the blood. Some of it was human, some animal. The dates didn't match any known disappearances in the area. The symbols appeared to be random scratches, not part of any known language or cult practice. The case was eventually closed due to lack of evidence. The woman said something that made my blood run cold. She mentioned that during the investigation, one of the officers had asked if they'd noticed any changes in their behavior since moving in. She hadn't thought about it before, but yes, her husband had become more irritable, more secretive. She'd started having trouble sleeping, would wake up feeling like someone had been watching her. Their daughter had become withdrawn, spending hours alone in her room. I thanked her and left, but her words echoed in my head during the drive home. I noticed changes in myself too. I'd been more isolated lately, avoiding friends, spending long hours staring at that wall. My appetite had decreased, and I developed a habit of checking locks multiple times before bed. I'd attributed it to stress from the move, but now I wondered if there was another explanation. Back at my house, I examined the wall again. The carvings seemed deeper than before, more defined. I counted the notches. There were definitely more than I'd remembered. I took new photographs and compared them to the ones from days earlier. The differences were subtle but undeniable. Someone had been adding to the collection. I installed a security camera pointed at the wall. For 3 nights, nothing happened. On the 4th night, I woke to the sound of scratching. I checked the camera feed on my phone, but the image was distorted, filled with static. When I went to the living room, the scratching stopped. In the morning, I found fresh marks on the wall, tiny scratches that hadn't been there before. I started sleeping in the living room, determined to catch whoever was doing this. I kept a baseball bat nearby and my phone ready to call police. The scratching came every night, always when I was on the edge of sleep. I'd jolt awake, grab my phone, but the camera would show nothing but empty room. Yet in the morning, there were always new marks. The symbols began to form patterns. What had seemed like random scratches now looked deliberate, purposeful. I researched similar cases online, found forums dedicated to unexplained phenomena. Other people had experienced similar things, walls that seemed to accumulate markings overnight, sounds that couldn't be recorded, the gradual feeling of being watched. One forum user shared a theory that made me uncomfortable. They suggested that some houses collect emotional energy from their inhabitants, that trauma and fear can leave permanent impressions. They claimed that sensitive people could become conduits for this energy, unconsciously adding to the collection without remembering. The idea was ridiculous, but it explained the gaps in my memory, the mornings when I'd wake up exhausted with dirt under my fingernails. I decided to leave the house, at least temporarily. I packed a bag and drove to a motel across town, but even there I couldn't stop thinking about the wall. I found myself drawing the symbols on napkins, recreating them from memory. The motel clerk asked if I was feeling all right. Apparently, I'd been muttering to myself in the lobby. After 3 days, I returned home. The wall had changed again. The name that had been carved repeatedly was now my name, etched in the same desperate style as the original. I didn't remember carving it. I couldn't remember the last few days clearly, but my hands were cut, my fingernails broken and bloody. The house felt different now, more alive somehow. The walls seemed to pulse with a rhythm I recognized, the same rhythm as the whispers I'd heard that first night. I pressed my ear against the wall and heard my own voice whispering back, soft like a lullaby, but wrong. I was having a conversation with someone who wasn't there, teaching them a song I couldn't remember learning. I understand now why the previous owners left so quickly. The house doesn't just collect markings, it collects people. We become part of its collection, adding our own desperate scratches to the wall, our own whispered songs to the chorus. I've tried to leave again, but something always brings me back. The wall is waiting, and I think it's almost ready for someone new. Crime 2. When I bought this place, I studied every blueprint, every inspection report. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary until I knocked on a section of the basement wall and it echoed hollow. Behind it was a narrow hallway leading to a sealed wooden door. Inside was a room that didn't belong, no lights, only shelves lined with photos. All of them were of strangers, except one. One showed me asleep in my bed from an angle that shouldn't be possible. There were notes, too, about my habits, my food, my movements. I think someone used this room to study people, and now it's my turn. The photograph was glossy, professional quality. I held it with trembling fingers, studying the impossible angle. My bedroom window faced the street, but this shot was taken from above, looking down at me sleeping. The timestamp in the corner showed a date from 2 weeks after I'd moved in. Someone had been watching me from the very beginning. I set the photo down and examined the shelves more carefully. Each section was meticulously organized, labeled with what appeared to be initials. Under MR were dozens of photos of a middle-aged woman walking her dog, entering a coffee shop, sitting at her kitchen table. The notes beside them detailed her routine down to the minute she left for work each morning. The smell in the room was stale, metallic, like old pennies mixed with something organic I couldn't identify. I pulled out my phone to use as a flashlight, casting harsh shadows across the walls. That's when I noticed the small holes drilled near the ceiling, each one perfectly round and about the size of a marble. Some had thin wires running through them, disappearing into the walls above. I followed one section labeled DK and found photos of a young man I recognized from the neighborhood. He jogged past my house every morning, always wearing the same blue headphones, but these weren't street photos. They showed him inside his apartment, brushing his teeth, making coffee, talking on the phone. The handwriting in the margins was neat, clinical. Subject maintains consistent sleep schedule. Leaves kitchen window unlocked. Drinks chamomile tea before bed. My hands were shaking as I moved to the next section. The photos under JL showed an elderly woman I'd seen at the grocery store. She lived alone, judging by the images of her eating dinner by herself, watching television in a dimly lit living room. The notes were more detailed here. No family visits, medication stored in bathroom cabinet, hearing aid removed at night. I found myself studying the handwriting, looking for patterns. The script was careful, deliberate. Whoever had written these observations took pride in their work. There was no emotion in the notes, no judgment, just cold, factual observations about people's most private moments. The section with my initials was thicker than the others. I pulled out photo after photo, each one more invasive than the last. Me cooking dinner, me reading on the couch, me in the shower. The notes documented everything, what I ate when I went to bed, how long I spent in each room. Subject works from home, rarely has visitors, orders groceries online every Sunday. I noticed something else. The photos weren't just surveillance, they were preparation. Each subject had been studied, their vulnerabilities cataloged. The elderly woman's medication schedule, the jogger's unlocked window, my own predictable routine. This wasn't random voyeurism, this was planning. I pulled out my phone to call the police, but I had no signal down here. The basement was too deep, too isolated. I needed to get back upstairs, but something made me pause. In the corner of the room, partially hidden behind a filing cabinet, was a small wooden box. Inside, I found keys. Dozens of them, each one labeled with the same initials I'd seen on the shelves. The key labeled with my initials was different from my house key. It was smaller, more intricate. I examined it closely, turning it over in my palm. The metal was worn smooth, as if it had been used frequently. But I'd changed all the locks when I moved in. This key shouldn't open anything in my house. I climbed back upstairs, my mind racing. I checked every door, every window, nothing. The key didn't fit anywhere. I was about to give up when I noticed something I'd never seen before. In the back of my bedroom closet, behind a row of hanging clothes, was a small keyhole set into the wall. It was painted the same color as the wall, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. The key fit perfectly. Behind the hidden panel was a narrow space, just wide enough for a person to crawl through. I grabbed my phone's flashlight and peered inside. It was a passage that ran behind the walls of my bedroom, with small openings that looked directly into my most private spaces. Someone had been watching me not just from outside, but from inside my own home. I crawled through the passage, my heart pounding. It connected to similar spaces behind other rooms in the house. The bathroom, the kitchen, the living room. Every space had been compromised, turned into a viewing gallery for someone's twisted hobby. The walls were lined with more notes, more observations. Subject sleeps on left side of bed, wakes up twice per night, talks to herself when cooking. When I emerged from the passage, I was shaking. I needed to call the police, but first I had to understand what I was dealing with. I went back to the hidden room and began photographing everything. The notes, the photos, the filing systems. As I worked, I started to notice patterns in the handwriting, the careful script, the specific abbreviations, the way certain letters were formed. I'd seen this handwriting before. I rushed back upstairs to my kitchen, where I kept important documents in a drawer. Purchase agreements, inspection reports, correspondence with the real estate agent. I pulled out the letter from the previous owner, the one who'd sold me the house. The handwriting was identical. The previous owner hadn't just sold me a house, they'd sold me a research project. I was the newest subject in their collection, the latest person to be studied and cataloged, but unlike the others, I'd found their secret. I discovered their hidden room, their surveillance network, their years of careful observation. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the letter. The previous owner had been so helpful during the sale, so accommodating. They'd even left me their forwarding address in case any mail arrived. But now I understood why they'd been so willing to sell. They didn't need to live here anymore. They'd built something better than ownership. They'd built access. I thought about all the other houses they might have owned, all the other people they might have studied. The photos in that room represented years of work, dozens of subjects, countless hours of observation. I was just the latest addition to their collection. I picked up my phone to call the police, but something stopped me. If I reported this, they'd investigate. They'd tear apart my house, examine every inch of those passages. They'd want to know why I'd waited so long to call, why I'd touched so much evidence. They'd ask questions I wasn't sure I could answer. And there was something else, something I didn't want to admit even to myself. As I'd looked through those photos, those careful observations, I'd felt a strange fascination. The attention to detail, the methodical approach, the way every aspect of a person's life could be reduced to patterns and predictions. It was horrifying, but it was also impressive. I found myself wondering about the other subjects. Were they still being watched? Did they know? Had any of them ever found their own hidden rooms, their own impossible photographs? Or was I the first to discover the truth? I went back to the basement one more time, telling myself I was looking for more evidence, but really I wanted to understand. I wanted to see what the previous owner had seen, to understand how they'd turned observation into art. The photos were more than just surveillance. They were a study of human behavior, a catalog of our most private moments. I spent the rest of the night in that room, reading through the notes, studying the photographs. Each subject had been different, but the approach was always the same. Patient observation, careful documentation, meticulous planning. It was the work of someone who understood that the most interesting things about people happen when they think no one is watching. When morning came, I realized I hadn't called the police. I'd been too fascinated, too absorbed in the mystery. I told myself I needed more evidence, more understanding, but the truth was simpler than that. I didn't want it to stop. I wanted to know how the story ended. I went back to the photos of the elderly woman, the jogger, the others. I studied their faces, their routines, their vulnerabilities. I wondered if they were still being watched, if somewhere out there the previous owner was still taking notes, still collecting their secrets, or if perhaps it was my turn to continue the work. The room was waiting for me. The cameras were in place, the passages were mapped, the system was ready. All I had to do was choose my first subject. Crime 3, I adopted a rescue dog. Sweet, calm, never barked until the day she growled at the hall closet and refused to go near it. No matter what I did, she stayed clear of that door. One night she started howling, pawing at my door, trying to warn me. I checked the closet, empty, but then I noticed the floor vent inside was loose. When I pulled it free, I found a hidden space with a stack of old photos, all showing different people bound and gagged. And every photo had a date scrawled on the back except one. That one had a note instead, "You're next." The photos felt cold between my fingers. Real photo paper, not digital prints. The kind that leaves fingerprints on the glossy surface. I counted them twice. 7 faces, 7 dates spanning decades. The oldest dated back to when this house was built, according to the real estate documents I'd signed just months before. My dog whimpered from the hallway, still refusing to cross that invisible line she'd drawn around the closet. Her breathing came in short, anxious puffs. I'd never seen her behave like this, not even during thunderstorms or when strangers knocked on the door. I spread the photos across my kitchen table under the harsh fluorescent light. Each face told a story I didn't want to read. Young, old men, women, all with the same terrified expression, the same desperate eyes pleading with whoever held the camera. The dates were written in different handwriting, different pens, different decades. Multiple people had been involved in this, or one person had been at it for far longer than seemed possible. The note on the unmarked photo was written in fresh ink. The paper wasn't yellowed like the others. Someone had been here recently. Someone who knew I'd moved in. Someone who knew I'd eventually find what they wanted me to find. I called the police. Detective Martinez arrived within the hour, her partner trailing behind with evidence bags and a camera. They documented everything, asked questions about the previous owner, about who had access to the house, about whether I'd noticed anything unusual before tonight. The previous owner had died in a care facility, they told me. Natural causes, no next of kin. The house had sat empty for 2 years before I bought it, but the lockbox on the front door had been tampered with recently. Someone had been watching, waiting. Detective Martinez held the unmarked photo up to the light. "This paper is different," she said. "Newer stock. This wasn't taken with the others." Her partner bagged the vent cover, dusting it for prints. "Multiple sets," he confirmed. "Some old, some fresh. We'll run them through the system." But I already knew what they'd find. Nothing. Whoever had left that note wasn't careless enough to leave identifying prints on a threat. They'd been planning this reveal for months, maybe years. They'd watched me move in, watched me settle into routines, watched me adopt a dog who could sense what I couldn't. The investigation moved slowly. The photos were analyzed, digitized, compared against missing persons reports. 3 of the faces matched cold cases from different decades. The others remained nameless, their stories lost to time and buried evidence. I installed security cameras, changed all the locks, had the vent sealed permanently. But the dog still wouldn't enter that closet. She'd sit at the threshold, staring into the empty space, occasionally whimpering at shadows I couldn't see. The detective called every few days with updates that weren't really updates. No new leads, no matching prints in the system. The handwriting analysis was inconclusive. The note could have been written by anyone, anywhere, any time in the past few months. I started noticing things, a car that parked too long across the street, footprints in the garden that weren't mine, the mail being delivered later than usual, as if someone had been rifling through it first. Small things, probably nothing, but after finding those photos, probably nothing felt like definitely something. My neighbor mentioned seeing someone in my backyard one evening while I was at work. Looked like maintenance, she said. Had a clipboard. Figured you'd hired someone to check the utilities. I hadn't hired anyone. I called the utility companies. No scheduled visits, no maintenance requests, no record of anyone being sent to my address. The dog's behavior changed. She stopped eating regularly, started following me from room to room, never more than a few feet away. At night, she'd position herself between me and the closet, like a guardian protecting something precious. I found myself checking the closet multiple times each day, opening the door, examining the walls, running my hands along the baseboards looking for more hidden spaces. The wood felt normal, sounded normal when I tapped it, but normal didn't mean safe anymore. The detective visited again after 3 weeks. We've hit a wall, she admitted. The photos are evidence of crimes, but crimes that happened decades ago. The note could be a prank, could be someone trying to scare you out of the house, could be the real thing. We can't know for sure. She recommended I consider moving. Sometimes the best solution is the simplest one, she said. Fresh start, new address, peace of mind. But moving felt like surrender, like admitting that whoever had left that note had won. They'd succeeded in making me afraid of my own home, afraid of shadows and sounds, and the way my dog's ears perked up at nothing. I decided to stay, not out of bravery, but out of stubborn curiosity. Someone wanted me to find those photos. Someone wanted me to be afraid. Someone was still watching, still waiting for whatever came next. The dog eventually returned to normal mostly. She'd enter the closet now, but only when I was with her. She'd sniff the corners, check the sealed vent, then look at me as if to say the danger had passed. But I knew better. The danger hadn't passed. It had just changed form. Instead of hiding in vents and old photographs, it was hiding in plain sight, in familiar faces that might not be as friendly as they seemed, in routine interactions that carried hidden meanings, in the growing certainty that someone very close to me knew exactly what I'd found and exactly what they planned to do about it. The unmarked photo still sits in an evidence bag somewhere, filed away with hundreds of other unsolved cases. But I remember every detail of that face, every shadow, every strand of hair, because sometimes when I'm walking through the house at night, I catch a glimpse of my own reflection in the dark windows. And sometimes that reflection looks exactly like the face in the photograph. Crime 4, it wasn't squatters or previous tenants, it was something else. I moved into what was supposed to be a brand new house, but I kept finding signs that someone had already been living there. Cabinets stocked with old cans, a razor blade in the shower, a half-burned candle behind the fridge. I thought maybe construction workers had stayed overnight. Then I started noticing notes taped under the toilet lid, behind the bathroom mirror, all handwritten, all addressed to me. The messages got more detailed. They knew what I wore, what I ate, what I thought, and the last note just said, "We've been waiting for you." The smell of vanilla lingered in the master bedroom, though I'd never lit a candle there. I'd been living in the house for 3 weeks when I started documenting everything. Each morning I'd walk through every room with my phone, taking pictures of anything that seemed different. The kitchen window was always slightly open, even though I remembered closing it. A coffee mug sat in the sink, still warm to the touch. I called the construction company. The foreman had a thick accent and seemed genuinely confused by my questions. He kept repeating that no one had keys except the previous homeowner and me. When I pressed him about the homeowner, he paused, said the house had been built for someone who never moved in. A family emergency, he claimed. The paperwork had been messy, lots of back and forth with lawyers. That afternoon, I found a grocery receipt tucked between the pages of a book I'd never opened. The items were specific: organic milk, whole grain bread, the exact brand of pasta I'd been buying. The date was from 2 days before I'd moved in. My hands shook as I held the thin paper. Someone had been preparing for me. I started sleeping with a chair propped against my bedroom door. The vanilla smell grew stronger each night. I'd wake up feeling watched, the sensation so real I could almost hear breathing that wasn't mine. In the bathroom mirror, I noticed fingerprints that were too small to be mine, pressed against the glass at eye level for someone shorter. The breakthrough came when I decided to check the crawl space. I'd been avoiding it, telling myself it was just construction debris down there. But the access panel in the hallway closet had scratches around the edges, fresh marks in the paint. I lowered myself into the narrow space with a flashlight, my heart hammering against my ribs. The beam caught something immediately, a sleeping bag neatly rolled. Next to it, a plastic container filled with photographs. All of them were of me, some taken through my kitchen window as I cooked dinner. Others showing me loading groceries into my car. A few captured me sleeping, taken from what had to be inside my own bedroom. My stomach turned as I flipped through them. At the bottom of the stack, I found pictures of the house being built. Someone had been documenting the construction process, watching as my future home took shape. But it was the final photograph that made my blood freeze. It showed me signing the purchase papers in the real estate office, but it was taken from behind the agent's desk. Someone had been there in that room during the closing. I called the police immediately. The officer who responded was professional but skeptical. He examined the photographs with gloves, asked detailed questions about my daily routine, whether I'd noticed anyone following me. But when I mentioned the construction foreman, his expression shifted. He asked me to repeat the name of the company. The next morning, the officer called back. The construction company was legitimate, but they'd never built a house at my address. The permits were forged, the paperwork fabricated. My deed was real, but the house had been built without authorization on land that belonged to someone else entirely. Someone who had disappeared 6 months earlier. I spent the rest of that week in a hotel trying to process what I'd learned. The missing person had been a woman roughly my age with similar interests and habits. She'd vanished while house hunting in the area. The police found her car abandoned but never located her body. According to the missing person report, she'd been looking for a house just like mine. When I returned to collect my belongings, I found one final note on my pillow. The handwriting was different this time, more careful, almost artistic. It simply read, "She picked the perfect spot for us. We knew you'd love it too." The house sits empty now. I moved across the country, changed my phone number, started over completely. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder if someone else has bought that house. If they're finding notes addressed to them, feeling that vanilla scent in the air. If they're discovering that some homes are built not just with wood and nails, but with intentions that run much deeper than foundation. I never learned what happened to the woman who disappeared. The case remains unsolved, filed away with dozens of others that seem to have no clear answers. But I know she's still there somehow in that house that was built for her, by someone who understood exactly what she wanted. And I know they're still waiting, patient as ever, for the next person who will fall in love with a home that was never meant to be empty. Crime 5, I found the album in the attic, dusty, moldy, forgotten. All black and white photos of strangers. No names, just faces frozen in time. I left it on the living room table. The next morning there were new pictures inside, color photos of me taken from angles that shouldn't exist. One from behind the couch, one from the bathroom mirror, one from under my bed. I live alone. I changed the locks. I installed cameras. But the next night there were even more photos. This time they showed things I hadn't done yet. That's when I stopped sleeping. The album belonged to the previous owner, an elderly woman who died in this house. The real estate agent mentioned she was a photographer, but nothing more. Professional cameras filled the basement. Darkroom equipment lined the walls. Chemical stains marked the concrete floor where developer had spilled decades ago. The smell still lingered, acidic, metallic, like pennies left in rain. I started researching her work. The local newspaper archives revealed she had photographed weddings, family portraits, school events, normal work. Nothing suggested she documented people without their knowledge. Nothing explained why someone would continue her practice after her death. The photos kept appearing, always overnight, always when I wasn't looking. I tried staying awake, watching the album from across the room. Nothing happened. But when exhaustion finally took me, more pictures appeared. Me making coffee, me reading on the porch, me standing in the shower with my back turned. The angles were impossible. The bathroom photo was taken from inside the medicine cabinet. The bedroom shot came from underneath the floorboards. Someone had been inside my walls, crawling through spaces that shouldn't exist. I found the first clue in the basement darkroom. Behind a cabinet, loose floorboards revealed a hidden space. Inside, dozens of photo albums identical to mine, each one filled with surveillance photos of different people. Men, women, children, all unaware they were being watched, all photographed in their most private moments. The dates on the photos spanned 40 years. The elderly woman had been documenting strangers her entire adult life, but the most recent albums contained photos dated after her death. Someone had continued her work, someone with access to her equipment, her methods, her obsession. I confronted the real estate agent. She shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. The woman had no family, she said, no friends, no one who would have inherited her belongings. The house sold quickly because the price was reduced. Too many potential buyers complained about feeling watched during showings. That night I heard footsteps in the walls, soft, deliberate movement between the studs. I followed the sound to the basement and found fresh scratches around the darkroom door. Someone had been inside recently. The chemical smell was stronger now, mixed with something else. Human sweat, fear. I discovered the tunnel system the next morning. Behind the furnace, a section of the foundation had been removed and replaced with loose stones. Beyond it, a narrow passage led under the neighboring houses. The previous owner had been accessing multiple homes through their basements. The tunnel walls were lined with photos, hundreds of them. A gallery of secret surveillance spanning decades. But some photos were recent, very recent. My neighbors appeared in them, unaware they were being watched. The elderly man next door brushing his teeth. The young couple across the street arguing in their kitchen. The single mother down the block tucking her children into bed. I realized I wasn't the only current target. Someone was still using this system, still adding to the collection, still maintaining the dead woman's obsession. The police investigation revealed more tunnels. The entire neighborhood was connected underground. Every house had been compromised. The surveillance network extended for blocks in every direction, but they found no current occupant, no evidence of who was maintaining the system, no fingerprints, no DNA, no traces of the photographer. The detective assigned to the case spoke quietly, almost reluctantly. Similar tunnel systems had been discovered in other neighborhoods, always connected to houses previously owned by photographers, always maintained by unknown individuals after the original owner's death, a pattern that suggested organization, planning, continuation. They sealed the tunnels with concrete, boarded up the basement passages, installed motion sensors throughout the underground network, but the photos continued appearing, not just in my album, but in albums belonging to other residents. The surveillance had simply moved to new methods, new locations, new victims. I found the final clue in the attic where I'd originally discovered the album. Behind the insulation, a small camera had been installed. It was connected to a wireless transmitter that sent images to an unknown location. The device was new, professionally installed. Someone had been watching me search for answers. The camera's memory card contained thousands of photos, not just of me, but of every person who had lived in this house for the past 5 years. The previous owner, the tenants before her, visitors, repair workers, everyone who had entered this space had been documented without their knowledge. But the most disturbing discovery was the metadata. The photos were being automatically uploaded to a server, cataloged, organized, shared with other users. The dead woman's obsession had evolved into something larger, a network of watchers documenting the unwatched. I tried to trace the server's location, but the digital trail led nowhere. Proxy servers, encrypted connections, anonymous accounts. Whoever was maintaining this system understood technology. They had adapted old methods to new tools. They had turned analog surveillance into digital omnipresence. The photos still appear, different albums, different houses, different victims, but the same angles, the same impossible perspectives, the same feeling of being watched from inside the walls. I moved away from that neighborhood, changed my name, started over in a place where no one knew my history. But sometimes in the mail I find envelopes containing photos of my new life, me unpacking boxes, me meeting new neighbors, me believing I had escaped. The return address is always different. The postmarks come from locations I've never visited, but the photos are always the same quality, the same impossible angles, the same message: you are still being watched. I've learned to live with the knowledge that privacy is an illusion, that walls and locks and distance mean nothing to those who have made watching into an art form, that somewhere in albums I'll never see, my life continues to be documented by eyes I'll never identify. The original album sits in an evidence locker, but the photos keep appearing in new albums, in new houses, in new lives. The watching never stops. It only changes location, changes methods, changes targets. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder if the dead woman ever knew she was being watched while she watched others, if her photos were added to someone else's collection, if her obsession was simply her assigned role in a larger system of surveillance. If we're all just subjects in albums we'll never see, documented by watchers we'll never meet, for purposes we'll never understand. The photos continue to appear, and I continue to live as if I'm not being watched, because the alternative is madness, because the truth is too large to comprehend, because somewhere in the darkness between the walls the cameras are still recording. Crime 6, the will was vague, but I followed through. The house was old, remote, and falling apart. I expected cobwebs and rot, not a steel door under the kitchen tiles. It led to a bunker complete with cells, real ones, chains on the wall, locks rusted shut. Inside one cell I found a journal with hundreds of entries, all about testing, conditioning, and control. The last pages were smeared with blood. Then I heard a sound from behind one of the locked doors. Not an animal, not an echo. A voice, and it knew my name. I should have left then. Common sense screamed at me to run, to call the authorities, to pretend I never saw what lay beneath that ordinary kitchen floor. But something held me there in that concrete tomb, something beyond curiosity or shock. The voice had been weak, desperate, but unmistakably real, and it had whispered my name with a familiarity that made my skin crawl. The bunker stretched further than I initially realized. What seemed like a simple basement expanded into a network of corridors lined with reinforced doors. Each cell contained remnants of habitation, makeshift beds, scratched walls, personal items that told stories I wasn't sure I wanted to understand. The air tasted metallic, thick with the scent of rust and something else I couldn't identify, something organic that had been there far too long. I returned to the journal, forcing myself to read despite the tremor in my hands. The entries were methodical, clinical in their detachment. Someone had been documenting human behavior under extreme conditions, sleep deprivation studies, psychological breaking points, pain thresholds. The handwriting was precise, almost mechanical, as if the writer had disconnected completely from the humanity of their subjects. But as I read deeper, inconsistencies emerged. The clinical tone would slip occasionally, revealing glimpses of doubt, of remorse. In one entry, the writer questioned the ethics of their work. In another, they described nightmares that kept them awake. The final entries grew increasingly erratic, the handwriting deteriorating into desperate scrawls about voices in the walls and shadows that moved independently of their sources. The blood on the last pages wasn't just stains, it formed patterns, almost like writing. Words that seemed to shift when I wasn't looking directly at them. I photographed every page, but the images came out blurred, as if the camera couldn't capture what my eyes were seeing. When I returned to the locked door where I'd heard the voice, silence greeted me. I pressed my ear against the cold metal, holding my breath. Nothing. But the lock was different from the others, newer, well-maintained. Someone had been caring for this particular cell while letting the others deteriorate. I searched the main house for keys, tearing through drawers and closets with growing desperation. In the master bedroom, behind a false panel I discovered by accident, I found a metal box containing dozens of keys and a stack of photographs. The images showed people I didn't recognize, men and women of various ages, all sharing the same hollow expression, the same defeated posture. At the bottom of the stack was a photograph of myself, taken through what appeared to be a telephoto lens. I was leaving my apartment, completely unaware of being watched. The photograph was dated just 3 weeks ago. My hands shook as I tried key after key in the lock. The 13th one turned with a soft click that echoed through the bunker like a gunshot. The door swung open on hinges that had been recently oiled, revealing a cell that was clean, maintained, and occupied. The woman inside couldn't have been older than 30, but her eyes held the weight of someone who had lived through decades of horror. She didn't seem surprised to see me. Instead, she smiled with a knowledge that made my blood freeze. "You're finally here," she said, her voice stronger now than the whisper I'd heard through the door. "I've been waiting for you to inherit this place, waiting for you to find me." I backed away, but she continued talking, her words following me down the corridor like a physical presence. "Did you think it was random, the inheritance, the will that brought you here? Your predecessor was very thorough in his planning. He knew he was dying, knew he needed someone to continue his work, someone with the right psychological profile, the right family history." "I don't understand," I managed to say, though part of me was beginning to comprehend something I desperately wanted to reject. "Check the journal again," she said. "Look at the handwriting in the early entries. Really look." I stumbled back to the cell where I'd found the journal, my vision blurring with panic. The early entries, the ones with the mechanical precision and clinical detachment, the handwriting was mine. Not similar to mine, not reminiscent of my style. It was exactly my handwriting, down to the specific way I formed certain letters, the pressure I applied to the pen, the slight slant that had been commented on since childhood. But I had never written those words, never conducted those experiments, never harmed another human being. The impossibility of it crashed over me like a wave, leaving me gasping and disoriented. "Memory can be manipulated," the woman's voice drifted from her cell. "Modified, suppressed. Your predecessor spent years perfecting the techniques. He needed to ensure continuity of his work, but he also needed to protect his successor from the psychological damage that comes with conscious participation." I flipped through the journal again, and this time I noticed what I had missed before. The dates. The entries spanned decades, but the handwriting remained consistent throughout. My handwriting, entries that predated my birth, written in the script I wouldn't develop until adolescence. "The inheritance wasn't property," the woman continued. "It was responsibility. A legacy that passes from one generation to the next, hidden in plain sight. Your predecessor trained you well, even if you don't remember the training. Every choice that led you here, every decision that shaped your life, it was all carefully orchestrated." I wanted to deny it, to argue that free will existed, that I had chosen my own path. But as I examined my memories, I found gaps, periods of my childhood I couldn't account for. Summers I supposedly spent with relatives I could never quite remember clearly. Schools I attended that left no lasting impression beyond vague recollections of being special, of being chosen for advanced programs. The woman in the cell was no longer speaking, but her presence filled the bunker like a toxic gas. I could feel her watching me, waiting for the moment when denial would crumble and acceptance would take its place. I left the bunker that night, but I didn't go far. I rented a room in a motel nearby, telling myself I needed to think, to process what I had discovered. But I knew the truth. I was waiting for something, though I couldn't identify what. The next morning I found myself back in the bunker, standing in front of the woman's cell. She looked exactly as she had the day before, as if she hadn't moved, hadn't slept, hadn't even blinked. "You're beginning to understand," she said. "The pull you feel, the compulsion to return, it's not curiosity, it's programming. You can't leave because you were never meant to leave." I tried to protest, to assert my independence, but the words died in my throat. She was right. Something was drawing me back, something stronger than conscious choice. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Nothing," she replied. "I'm not here to want anything. I'm here to help you remember who you really are, who you've always been." She gestured to a corner of her cell where I hadn't noticed a small table. On it sat a syringe filled with clear liquid. "Your predecessor left this for you," she said. "It will restore your memories, remove the blocks that have been protecting you from the truth. But once you take it, there's no going back. You'll remember everything, the training, the experiments, the subjects who came before me. You'll remember choosing this path, embracing it, perfecting it." I stared at the syringe, knowing I should run, knowing I should destroy it and burn the entire place down. But my hand was already reaching for it, my fingers closing around the cold metal as if they had done so countless times before. "The choice was never whether to continue the work," the woman said softly. The choice was whether to do it consciously or unconsciously. Your predecessor chose consciousness. He wanted to remember, to understand what he had become. The question is, what will you choose? I stood there in that underground chamber, holding the key to memories I wasn't sure I wanted to recover, facing a truth I had spent my entire life unknowingly preparing for. The woman waited patiently, her eyes reflecting a knowledge that terrified and attracted me in equal measure. The syringe felt warm in my hand now, as if it were alive, as if it were part of me. And perhaps it was. Perhaps it had always been part of me, waiting for this moment, this choice, this inevitable return to something I had never really left behind. Above us, the house creaked and settled in the wind, keeping its secrets just as it had for decades. Just as it would for decades to come, no matter what I chose to do with the truth that lay heavy in my palm. The woman smiled, and in that smile I saw my own reflection, not as I was, but as I would become. As I perhaps had always been, beneath the carefully constructed amnesia that had protected me from myself. The choice was mine, but the outcome had been decided long before I was born. Crime 7, the tub started to sink. I thought it was just bad plumbing, but when I pulled it up, I discovered a hatch beneath it, sealed with metal bolts. Curiosity won. I opened it and dropped a flashlight down. The space below was bigger than I expected. It wasn't a crawl space, it was a room, and on the walls someone had painted symbols in thick black strokes. In the center there was a mattress and a camera facing straight up. The feed was wired to a monitor in my bedroom wall, hidden behind a false panel. Someone had been watching, recording, and now they were watching me discover it. I should have called the police immediately. Instead, I found myself climbing down into that room, my bare feet touching the cold concrete floor. The smell hit me first, a mixture of stale air and something else, something organic that made my stomach turn. The walls were covered in those symbols, painted with what looked like thick black paint, though I couldn't shake the feeling it might be something else entirely. The mattress was old, stained with dark patches that could have been anything. Could have been, but deep down I knew what they were. The camera was professional grade, the kind used for surveillance or film work. Its lens was focused on the exact spot where someone would lie on that mattress. I followed the wire that snaked along the wall, disappearing through a hole drilled into the foundation. Back in my bedroom, I found the monitor hidden behind what I had always assumed was a decorative panel. The screen was black, but when I pressed the power button, it flickered to life. The feed was live. I could see myself in the hidden room below, looking up at the camera. I could see my own face, pale and shocked, staring back at me through the monitor. The recording device was sophisticated. Multiple hard drives labeled with dates going back years before I had moved into this house. I selected the oldest one, my hands trembling as I inserted it into the player. The screen filled with images of the room below, but it wasn't empty. A figure lay on the mattress, face turned away from the camera. The timestamp showed it was recorded 2 years ago. I watched, horrified, as the figure moved. They weren't sleeping. They were restrained. The quality was too good, the angles too deliberate. This wasn't random. This was planned, methodical. Someone had built this room, installed this equipment, and used it for purposes that made my skin crawl. I went through more recordings, different people, different dates. Some footage was recent, from just months ago. The previous owner of the house had sold it to me in a hurry, claiming a sudden job relocation. He had been eager to close quickly, offering to leave behind furniture and appliances. I had thought it was generous. Now I wondered what he had really been trying to hide. The real estate agent had been his friend, someone he recommended personally. They had both been insistent that I not bring in contractors for renovations, claiming the house was in perfect condition. The inspection had been cursory, performed by someone they suggested. The pattern was becoming clear, and it terrified me. I found a hidden drawer in the desk upstairs, behind a false back panel. Inside were photographs, printed versions of what I had seen on the recordings, but these were different. These showed faces clearly, people I recognized from the neighborhood. The woman who jogged past my house every morning, the man who delivered my mail, the teenager who lived 3 houses down. Among the photographs was a journal, written in careful handwriting. The entries detailed a methodical process of observation, selection, and invitation. The previous owner had been watching the neighborhood for years, identifying targets, learning their routines. The hidden room wasn't just a recording studio, it was a trap. The journal described how easy it was to lure people into the house. A fake emergency, a request for help, an invitation for coffee. Once inside, they would be drugged, carried to the room below, and recorded. The entries were clinical, detached, describing human beings as subjects in an experiment. I called the police, but when they arrived, something felt wrong. The officer who responded was someone I recognized from one of the photographs. He examined the room briefly, took some notes, and told me he would file a report. He suggested I might want to seal the room and forget about it. For my own safety, he said, some things were better left undisturbed. The next morning, I found a note slipped under my door. It was written in the same careful handwriting as the journal. It thanked me for my discretion and suggested that I might want to continue the previous owner's work. There was money in it, the note explained, good money, and people who asked too many questions sometimes disappeared. I realized then that I wasn't just the new owner of this house. I was the new keeper of its secrets. The hidden room, the recordings, the network of people who knew about it and protected it. I had stumbled into something much larger than one person's twisted hobby. This was organized, systematic, and ongoing. The symbols on the walls weren't random. They were a code marking different types of recordings, different categories of victims. The system was sophisticated, with multiple levels of security and backup storage. This wasn't the work of a single disturbed individual. This was a business. I tried to leave, but my car wouldn't start. The phone lines were cut. The neighbors I approached for help looked at me with knowing expressions and closed their doors. The jogger who passed my house every morning stopped running past my street. The mail carrier began leaving packages at the end of my driveway instead of coming to the door. The monitor in my bedroom now showed more than just the hidden room. Cameras had been installed throughout the house, capturing my every movement. I was being watched, recorded, analyzed. The hunter had become the hunted, and somewhere in the darkness, someone was deciding whether I would become the next subject in their collection or the next keeper of their secrets. I sit here now writing this account, knowing that every word is being recorded. The hidden room below still smells of fear and desperation. The recordings still play on the monitor, and I still don't know if I'm a victim or an accomplice in something too horrible to fully comprehend. The truth is, I'm not sure I want to know anymore. Crime 8, my ceiling started sagging. I thought it was just bad insulation. I went into the crawl space to check. Everything looked fine until I saw it. A mattress pushed against the far end, surrounded by snack wrappers, half-burned candles, and children's drawings. One drawing showed the layout of my house, accurate down to the furniture. Another showed me asleep from above. The final one, a dark figure standing at the foot of my bed with 2 red dots for eyes. I looked back at the mattress and saw fresh footprints in the dust. Whoever was up there wasn't gone for long. The smell hit me first when I climbed back down, sweet, cloying, like old fruit mixed with something metallic. It clung to my clothes, my hair, followed me into the shower. I scrubbed until my skin turned raw, but it lingered in my nostrils for days. I called the police. The officer who came looked barely old enough to vote. He examined the drawings with latex gloves, photographed everything, bagged the evidence. His radio crackled constantly, other crimes, other emergencies. This was just another case number to him. "Anyone have access to your house?" he asked, pen poised over his notepad. I thought about the spare key under the flower pot, the unlocked back door when I forgot groceries in the car, the window latch that never quite caught properly, too many possibilities. "The previous owner," I said. "He might still have keys." The officer nodded, made a note. "We'll need his contact information." But finding the previous owner proved impossible. The real estate agent had retired. The company that handled the sale had closed. Even the neighbors couldn't remember his name clearly, just that he was quiet, kept to himself, had lived here for decades before selling suddenly. I changed all the locks anyway, added a security system, motion sensors, cameras. The house felt like a fortress, but I still heard sounds at night, creaking floorboards, whispers through the vents, the faint scratch of pencil on paper. The drawings haunted me most. The precision of the house layout suggested someone who had spent considerable time observing, measuring, planning. But the childlike quality of the figures, stick people with oversized heads, wobbly lines, primary colors, seemed innocent, almost playful. I brought them to a handwriting expert. She studied them under magnification, compared stroke patterns, analyzed pressure points. "These weren't drawn by a child," she said, sliding her glasses down her nose. "The motor control is too developed. Someone was deliberately mimicking a child's style." "Why would someone do that?" She shrugged, to throw off investigators, to appear less threatening, or maybe they're not quite right in the head. I started researching the house's history, property records, newspaper archives, anything that might explain who had been living in my crawl space. The previous owner had purchased the house from an elderly woman who died intestate. Before that, it had belonged to a family with 2 young children. The children had disappeared. Not officially, no police reports, no missing persons cases, but school records showed they stopped attending classes mid-semester. Medical records ended abruptly. It was as if they had simply vanished from all documentation. I found the mother working at a diner across town. She recognized me immediately when I mentioned the address. "You bought that house," her coffee cup rattled against the saucer. "Why would you do that? What happened to your children?" She stared out the window for a long moment. "They ran away, both of them, same night. Left me a note saying they couldn't take it anymore." "Take what?" "The man upstairs. He watched them sleep, drew pictures of them. They found his drawings under their beds, shoved through the heating vents. The police said it was just neighborhood kids playing pranks." My hands went cold. The man upstairs. We heard him moving around at night, footsteps in the attic. But when we looked, nothing was there, just empty space and insulation. She described the same smell I had noticed, the same scratching sounds, the same feeling of being watched. "The children started acting strange," she continued, "drawing pictures of him, dark figures with red eyes. They said he promised to take them somewhere safe where nobody could hurt them." "Where did they go?" "I don't know. I never saw them again." I called the police detective handling my case. He sounded tired, overworked, like he was juggling too many files. Did you check for missing children connected to this address? We ran a standard background check. Nothing came up. What about from 30 years ago, before computers? Silence on the other end. Then, those records might not be digitized. We'd have to search manually. But they never did. The case went cold within a month. No new evidence, no suspects, no leads worth pursuing. I hired a private investigator, a former cop with gray hair and knowing eyes. He spent weeks digging through old files, interviewing neighbors, tracking down former residents. There's something here, he told me over coffee. Too many coincidences, too many people who suddenly moved away, too many children who just disappeared from the system. What do you think happened? He leaned forward. I think someone was using your house as a base of operations. Someone who knew how to move through the crawl space, how to watch families without being detected. Someone who understood children well enough to lure them away. Is he still out there? Maybe, or maybe he's dead, or maybe he's closer than you think. The investigator disappeared 3 days later. His office was cleaned out, his phone disconnected. His landlord said he'd paid 6 months' rent in advance and then vanished without notice. I started noticing things, fresh footprints in the garden, windows that I was certain I had closed standing slightly ajar, the smell returning intermittently, strongest near the heating vents. One night I heard voices, children's voices, whispering through the walls. I followed the sound to the kitchen, where the heating vent was barely visible behind the refrigerator. We're still here, the voices said. We never left. I pulled the refrigerator away from the wall. The vent cover was loose, held by only 2 screws. Inside, I found more drawings, dozens of them, all showing the same dark figure with red eyes, but now he was surrounded by small figures holding hands. At the bottom of the pile was a photograph, black and white, slightly blurred. It showed the previous owner, the one nobody could remember, standing in front of the house with 2 children. They were smiling, but their eyes looked hollow, distant. On the back, someone had written, "The game never ends." I burned the drawings in the fireplace. The smoke was thick and acrid, filling the room with that same sweet, metallic smell. But as the paper curled and blackened, I swear I could hear children laughing somewhere in the walls. The police found my car abandoned by the river. My wallet was still inside, along with my keys and phone. They searched the house thoroughly, but found nothing unusual. The crawl space was empty, just old insulation and dust. The neighbors said they saw me loading boxes into a rental truck, said I looked nervous, kept checking over my shoulder, but there's no record of me renting a truck, no record of me leaving town. Sometimes on quiet nights, the new owners hear sounds in the crawl space. Footsteps, whispers, the faint scratch of pencil on paper. They found drawings too, stick figures with oversized heads showing the layout of the house. And sometimes, when the moon is dark and the wind is still, children in the neighborhood have dreams. Dreams of a friendly man who knows all about them, who watches them sleep, who promises to take them somewhere safe. The crawl space is never really empty. It's just waiting for the next family to move in. Crime 9, I thought I'd explore the attic, clean it out, maybe use it for storage, but the hatch wouldn't open. It was nailed shut, 6 long nails hammered in unevenly. I pulled them out and climbed up. The attic was empty except for a single trunk. Inside were dozens of cassette tapes labeled with different emotions: fear, anger, despair. I played one. It was the sound of someone screaming, long, drawn out, and horrifying. Another tape had someone whispering about things they had done. I don't know whose voice it was, but they mentioned this exact house, this exact attic, and the next tape was labeled with a new word, curiosity. That word stared back at me from the faded label, written in the same careful handwriting as all the others. The cassette felt heavier than the rest somehow, as if it held more than just magnetic tape and plastic. I slipped it into the old player I'd brought up from the basement, my fingers trembling slightly as I pressed play. The voice was different this time, younger, a woman speaking in measured tones like someone reading from a script they'd rehearsed many times. She talked about watching, about studying patterns in people's behavior when they thought no one was looking. She described how she'd started small, just observing neighbors through windows, but how the need to understand had grown stronger. The tape crackled with static, but her words came through clearly enough to make my skin crawl. I rewound it, played it again. Something about the cadence was familiar, but I couldn't place it. The woman mentioned details about the house that only someone who'd lived here would know: the loose floorboard in the kitchen, the way the bathroom door stuck during humid weather, the view from the upstairs window that looked directly into the neighbor's backyard. I'd bought this house from an estate sale. The previous owner had died alone, they told me. Natural causes, no family to speak of. The realtor had been eager to close quickly, offering me a price well below market value. I'd assumed it was just an old house that needed work, nothing more sinister than outdated plumbing and peeling wallpaper. But now, sitting in the dusty attic with a box full of confessions, I realized how little I'd actually asked about the woman who'd lived here before me. I'd been so focused on the practical details, inspections, financing, move-in schedules, that I'd never wondered about her story. The next tape was labeled Patience. The same woman's voice, but older now, worn down by something I couldn't identify. She spoke about waiting, about planning, about the importance of timing. She described how she'd learned to predict when people would be alone, when they'd be vulnerable, when they'd be most likely to trust a stranger at their door. My hands grew cold as I listened. She talked about choosing subjects, about studying their routines until she knew them better than they knew themselves. She mentioned a local park where she'd sit for hours, watching families play, taking note of which children wandered too far from their parents. She described following people home, learning their addresses, their schedules, their weaknesses. The tape ended abruptly, cutting off mid-sentence. I sat in the silence, my heart pounding loud enough to echo in the empty space. The smell of old wood and dust seemed heavier now, mixed with something else I couldn't quite identify, something metallic and stale. I picked up another tape, this one labeled Regret. Before I could talk myself out of it, I pressed play. The woman's voice was different again, shakier, filled with what sounded like genuine emotion. She spoke about mistakes, about going too far, about the moment when watching and planning had turned into something else entirely. She described a confrontation, a struggle, someone who discovered what she was doing and tried to stop her. Her voice broke as she talked about the basement, about having to make a choice between her freedom and someone else's life. She mentioned the smell of fear, the way it changes a person's sweat, makes it sharp and sour. The recording was interrupted by other sounds, footsteps, a door slamming, muffled voices. When the woman's voice returned, it was whispered and rushed. She said she had to hide the evidence, had to make sure no one would ever find what she'd done. She mentioned the attic, how it would be the perfect place to store the things she couldn't bear to throw away, but couldn't risk keeping visible. I stopped the tape, my hands shaking as I pulled it from the player. The trunk seemed to glow in the dim light filtering through the single attic window, its contents spreading around me like accusations. I counted the tapes again, 47 in total, spanning what appeared to be years of escalating obsession. The labels told a story by themselves: curiosity, patience, watching, following, contact, trust, betrayal, panic, silence. The handwriting remained consistent throughout, though it became more erratic toward the end, as if the woman had been writing in darkness or in haste. I found a small notebook tucked beneath the tapes, its pages filled with addresses, names, detailed observations about strangers' daily routines. My own address was listed on the final page, along with notes about my work schedule, my car, my habit of leaving the back door unlocked when I took out the trash. The entries about me were dated just a few weeks before the estate sale, before the woman had died. She'd been watching me, studying me, perhaps planning something that death had interrupted. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I hadn't chosen this house randomly. Somehow, I'd been chosen for it. I climbed down from the attic, leaving the tapes and notebook behind, but their weight seemed to follow me. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow in the corners, every ordinary sound of the house settling felt different now. I called the realtor, demanded to know more about the previous owner, about how she died, about why the house had been priced so low. The answers I got were vague, evasive. Natural causes, they repeated. No next of kin. The estate just wanted to close quickly. But when I pressed for details, when I asked about police reports or medical examiner findings, the conversation always seemed to drift away from specifics. I started researching on my own, digging through public records, old newspaper archives, missing person reports. I found patterns, people who disappeared over the years, always from the same general area, always under circumstances that suggested they'd left voluntarily. No signs of struggle, no evidence of foul play, just empty houses and unanswered questions. The woman's name appeared in connection with several of the cases, always as a concerned neighbor or helpful citizen who provided information to investigators. She'd been the one to notice when someone hadn't picked up their mail, when a dog had been left alone too long, when someone's routine had suddenly changed. She'd been helpful, observant, the kind of neighbor people appreciated in a community. But now I wondered if her helpfulness had been something else entirely. If she'd been the reason those people had disappeared, if she'd been reporting their absences because she'd known exactly why they were gone. The basement of my house had been thoroughly cleaned before I'd moved in, scrubbed down to the concrete with industrial-strength cleaners. I'd assumed it was just part of preparing the house for sale, but now I wondered what had needed to be cleaned so thoroughly, what stains had been covered, what evidence had been erased. I found myself listening to the tapes again, searching for clues I might have missed. The woman's voice became familiar, intimate in a way that made my skin crawl. She spoke about the basement in several recordings, about the soundproofing she'd installed, about the tools she'd collected, about the careful way she disposed of things that couldn't be kept. In one tape, she mentioned a specific date, describing it as the last time she'd need to use the basement for her purposes. When I checked the records, it was exactly 3 days before she died. The timing felt too convenient, too clean. I began to wonder if her death had been as natural as everyone claimed. But the deeper I dug, the more I realized that the answers I was looking for might not exist in public records or police reports. They might be here in this house, in the spaces between the walls and beneath the floorboards. The woman had been meticulous in her planning, careful in her execution. If she'd left evidence behind, it would be hidden where only someone living in the house would think to look. I began to understand that moving into this house hadn't been an accident or a coincidence. It had been part of a plan, a final act in a story I was only beginning to comprehend. The woman had died, but her work hadn't ended. She'd made sure someone else would find the tapes, would listen to her voice, would become invested in her story. And now, sitting in the house she'd carefully prepared for me, I realized I was exactly where she'd wanted me to be. The question that kept me awake wasn't whether she'd been guilty of the things she'd confessed to on those tapes. The question was whether I was meant to be her final victim or her replacement. Story 10. In the quiet stillness of the night, a gentle breeze whispered through the branches, casting dancing shadows across the walls of a Victorian-era home. Michael and Sarah Klein had never expected their new residence to hold such secrets beneath its charming facade. It all began with a simple water stain in the master bedroom, a seemingly innocent blemish on the floral wallpaper. As they peeled back the layers, each revealing a piece of the past, they uncovered a hidden narrative etched in ink. The name Alina Winters appeared repeatedly, a haunting echo from decades long gone. The handwriting, once elegant, had deteriorated into a frenzied scrawl that seemed to pulse with a mysterious energy. Questions lingered in the air like wisps of smoke, swirling around the couple as they delved deeper into the enigma. Who was Alina Winters, and why was her name so intricately woven into the very fabric of the house? The answers remained elusive, shrouded in the mists of time. In their search for the truth, Michael and Sarah stumbled upon a chilling revelation, a missing persons case that paralleled the unsettling resemblance between Alina Winters and the woman who had sold them the house. Margaret Cavendish, with her silver-streaked dark hair and enigmatic demeanor, had unwittingly drawn them into a web of intrigue that spanned decades. The walls of their home, once silent witnesses to the passage of time, now whispered tales of love and loss, betrayal and redemption. Each layer peeled back revealed a fragment of the past, a piece of the puzzle that refused to fit neatly into place. The house itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the truth to be unveiled. As Michael and Sarah embarked on a quest for answers, they unearthed a story that defied logic and reason. Alina Winters, a ghost from the past, reached out to them through the faded ink on the walls, urging them to uncover the dark secrets that lay buried within the foundation of their home. And so, with each discovery, the mystery deepened, drawing them inexorably into a world where reality blurred with fantasy, and the line between truth and illusion grew ever thinner. The walls themselves seemed to pulse with a life of their own, a heartbeat echoing through the corridors of time. In the end, it was not just a name scrawled on the walls, but a haunting reminder of a life lost and a soul fractured. Alina Winters and Margaret Cavendish, two sides of the same coin, trapped in a dance of shadows and light. The house that had once promised solace and sanctuary now stood as a monument to the mysteries that lurked beneath the surface of the everyday world. And as the night deepened and the stars blinked overhead, Michael and Sarah found themselves enveloped in a cocoon of tranquility, the weight of the past lifting from their shoulders like a heavy shroud. In the embrace of the darkness, they discovered a peace that transcended the boundaries of time and space, a sanctuary forged from the ashes of a forgotten tale. And so they drifted into dreams, carried on the wings of a story that whispered of forgotten echoes and lost memories, a lullaby of secrets and shadows that cradled them in its soothing embrace. And as sleep claimed them, the house itself seemed to exhale a sigh of relief, its walls finally at peace, its secrets laid bare to the gentle touch of the night. Story 11, in the depths of the attic, hidden beneath layers of forgotten belongings, lay an old box. It had weathered the passage of time, preserving within it a collection of memories captured on faded Polaroids. Amongst the mundane snapshots of birthdays and cheerful gatherings, one photo stood out from the rest, shrouded in an eerie mystery. It depicted a family seated in a familiar living room, yet they were strangers to the current occupant of the house, Rebecca. Behind the joyful faces of the family in the picture, a figure lurked in the shadows, a silent observer in the hallway. As Rebecca gazed at the photograph, a chill danced down her spine, sending tremors through her fingertips. The image seemed to pulsate with an unsettling energy, as if the past was reaching out to her from beyond the confines of the picture. With cautious steps, she descended the creaking staircase, the weight of the unknown pressing down on her. Placing the photograph on her kitchen counter, Rebecca scrutinized it under the harsh glare of the fluorescent light. The parallels between her home and the scene captured in the photo were undeniable, yet the presence of the unfamiliar family raised more questions than answers. Seeking clarity, she summoned Detective Morgan, a seasoned investigator with a gaze that pierced through illusions. Examining the Polaroid with a practiced eye, Morgan delved into the tangled web of the house's history. Each previous family that had resided within its walls seemed to vanish without a trace, leaving behind a trail of unanswered mysteries. The Sutherlands, a family identified in the photograph, had slipped into oblivion, their disappearance marking just one chapter in the house's enigmatic story. Forensic analysis uncovered peculiarities within the photograph, hinting at a deliberate staging of the scene. The shadowy figure that haunted the hallway remained a silent sentinel, its identity veiled in obscurity. As Detective Morgan unraveled the threads of the past, a pattern of families vanishing after precisely 1 year of residence, leaving no trace of their existence. Delving deeper into the house's history, the investigation unearthed a dark secret buried beneath the basement floor. The remains of the missing families lay entombed within the earth, frozen in time, their stories forever suspended in the shadows. Among the artifacts discovered was a camera, the instrument through which their final moments had been immortalized. As Rebecca grappled with the harrowing revelations, a hidden crawlspace in the attic yielded a chilling discovery, a journal detailing the meticulous observations of the families by an elusive presence. The final entry, a foreboding message, hinted at a sinister agenda unfolding within the confines of the house. Seeking refuge under police protection, Rebecca found herself ensnared in a sinister game orchestrated by an unseen adversary. The night air was pierced by the shrill ring of a phone, heralding the arrival of a cryptic message, a photo developing in the darkness, capturing the essence of fear in a single snapshot. The investigation lingered on, the house standing as a silent witness to the enigma that had unfolded within its walls. The specter of Samuel Whitfield, the elusive architect of the house, loomed over the unresolved mystery, his true fate obscured by the veil of time. And as new families ventured into the realm of shadows, unaware of the watcher in their midst, the legacy of the house continued to unfurl, shrouded in secrets that defied explanation. In the stillness of the night, as the world slumbered in ignorance, a new chapter of darkness began to take shape, a chapter where the past and present intertwined, where the boundaries of reality blurred, and where the echoes of whispered secrets reverberated through the corridors of time. And in the heart of the house, where memories and nightmares converged, the enigmatic figure of Samuel Whitfield watched from the shadows, his presence a haunting reminder of the mysteries that lay buried within the walls of the house. Story 12. The aged apartment held its secrets, pipes that moaned, floorboards that whispered, yet the new tenant sensed a difference in the sounds she heard. The footsteps above were too deliberate, too rhythmic. She dwelled on the top floor, but the steps persisted, slow and precise. One night she dared to tap the ceiling with a broomstick. The sound ceased. Silence enveloped the space. Then a single knock resounded from within the ceiling. Sarah Coleman kept the knocking incident to herself, chalking it up to the old building settling or perhaps a small creature exploring the attic. Despite the nightly footsteps echoing above, she adjusted, raising the volume on her television, donning headphones to muffle the methodical footfalls traversing her ceiling in the shadows. Detective Morris caught wind of the apartment through a maintenance worker who stumbled upon a concealed crawlspace while conducting repairs. During the routine fix for a water leak outside Sarah's unit, the worker uncovered a narrow passage hidden behind a section of drywall, a passage absent from the building plans. A flashlight beam revealed a makeshift living area within scattered food wrappers, empty water bottles, a soiled blanket, and a worn notebook. The building manager swiftly alerted the police. Detective Morris and his partner, Detective Rivera, arrived to find the maintenance worker visibly shaken. "Someone's been living within the walls," he repeated. "Someone's been watching." The notebook held meticulous notes on Sarah Coleman, her daily routine, visitors, meals, TV preferences, shower times, and sleep patterns. The handwriting, once neat, deteriorated into chaos towards the final pages, with strange symbols adorning the margins. "The subject no longer responds to my signals," the last entry read. "She has chosen to ignore me. No one ignores me." Forensic teams scoured the crawlspace, uncovering fingerprints unmatched in any database. A complex network of passages intricately woven into the building's walls and ceilings emerged, some dating back decades per structural analysis. These passages linked to 5 different apartments but led to observation points disguised as innocuous fixtures or minor damage only in Sarah Coleman's unit. Residents currently residing in the building reported no peculiar occurrences beyond typical apartment noises. However, former tenants shared unsettling experiences. 3 prior occupants of Sarah's apartment recounted feeling watched or hearing unexplained movements. 1 tenant departed after a mere 2 weeks. None spoke up, fearing they'd sound paranoid. The case took a turn when forensics detected microscopic blood spatter in one of the crawlspace corners. DNA analysis linked the spatter to Martin Weaver, a former resident who vanished without a trace 4 years earlier. His family had reported him missing, but the trail had gone cold. Martin had lived directly below Sarah's apartment. Detective Morris revisited Martin's disappearance. Neighbors recalled Martin's complaints about noises above his unit. He had confronted the tenant residing above him, a reclusive man named Edward. Shortly after the confrontation, Martin disappeared, and Edward vacated the premises without a forwarding address the following month. Investigations into Edward's rental history unveiled a pattern, requesting top-floor units, forming scarce social connections, and departing without notice characterized his transient lifestyle across 6 different apartment buildings over 2 decades. A neighbor from his 3rd residence labeled him intense, recalling his obsession with silence. Property records led investigators to remote rural property owned by Edward. Inside a cabin, they uncovered walls adorned with photos and notes. Images of apartment residents, including Sarah Coleman and Martin Weaver, lined the walls alongside ventilation maps and detailed journals chronicling observations of the specimens and maintaining the habitat. A corkboard at the cabin's center displayed newspaper clippings, 6 missing persons reports, all former apartment dwellers from Edward's past residences. Deep scratches marred the cabin floor beneath the board, suggesting something heavy had been dragged repeatedly. Behind the cabin, cadaver dogs guided detectives to freshly disturbed soil. Excavation unveiled human remains, one grave after another. As forensic anthropologists worked to identify the victims, Detective Morris returned to Sarah's building. Though the crawl space had been sealed, residents sporadically reported faint noises. During security system installation, maintenance workers stumbled upon a corner where the ceiling met the wall. A new notebook, more recent than the previous one, lay hidden. The initial page held a single ominous line. "They found my old nest, but not my new one," mirroring the writing in the earlier notebook. The final page depicted a crude sketch of Sarah's apartment layout with a new passage marked in red and a date for that very night. Officers rushed to evacuate Sarah, only to discover her unit deserted. Her phone rested on the kitchen counter, the TV still illuminated, and the shower running. In the bathroom, a message materialized on the misty mirror, inscribed by a finger, "Look up." The ceiling panel above the shower had been removed. The manhunt for Edward, now identified as Edward Mercer, a former construction worker skilled in renovations, rages on. His comprehension of building structures enabled him to construct a concealed network of observation points and passages. Thermal scans of Sarah's building showed no signs of current habitation within the walls. Sarah Coleman remains missing, her case intertwined with similar disappearances spanning multiple states. Detective Morris, haunted not by the graves or journals but by the photos of unsuspecting residents, envisions Sarah hearing those footsteps above her in an apartment void of an upstairs neighbor. The footsteps that ceased upon her knock and then responded. Sometimes in the solitude of his dwelling, Detective Morris gazes up at his ceiling, listening, anticipating, pondering who else might be listening as well. Story 13, The Intriguing House of Secrets. She glided through the front door, dust dancing in the stagnant air. The abandoned house stood frozen in time, its peeling walls and shrouded furniture holding silent stories of days gone by. Every room she entered felt strangely familiar, as if caught in a loop leading back to the parlor. The doors, no matter where they led, always circled her back to where she started. The only escape seemed to be the entrance she had come through. But when she turned to leave, the front door had vanished into thin air. The unexpected discovery of Morgan Pierce's body turned the once forgotten Victorian house into a scene of mystery and intrigue. Detective Sarah Lind observed in silence as forensic experts moved quietly through the dimly lit rooms, their movements ghostly in the eerie atmosphere. The house had gained a reputation among locals for its strange occurrences, compasses spinning out of control, whispers of unseen watchers. Now, it held secrets darker than anyone could have imagined. The initial examination suggests she passed approximately 3 days ago, the medical examiner murmured, his words barely audible in the heavy silence. The cause of death appears to be asphyxiation. Morgan was found seated in an antique chair in the parlor, her posture serene as if awaiting someone's arrival. No signs of struggle, no visible injuries. The stillness of the scene sent a shiver down the spines of even the most seasoned investigators. Lind inquired who discovered the body. Her partner replied, "A real estate agent showing the property stumbled upon her, mistaking her for a trespasser until they got closer." The house had remained empty since the passing of its previous owner, Eleanor Blackwood, years earlier. Legal battles had left it abandoned, a forgotten relic except to those seeking thrills and mischief. Morgan Pierce, a young graduate student with a passion for unraveling architectural mysteries, had been drawn to the house's enigmatic reputation. Her journal entries hinted at strange phenomena, peculiar sounds, sudden chills, doors leading to ever-changing rooms. In her quest to document these anomalies, she had vanished without a trace. The investigation unveiled a puzzling detail in Morgan's autopsy report, a rare alkaloid linked to shamanic rituals present in her system. Though not in lethal amounts, the substance could induce disorientation and vivid visions. Her boyfriend insisted she was not one to partake in recreational drugs, raising more questions than answers. Deleted messages on Morgan's phone hinted at a mysterious connection, someone who shared her fascination with the house's secrets. The exchanges grew intimate and cryptic, hinting at a deeper understanding of the dwelling's mysteries. The house holds memories, read one message. It longs for someone to comprehend. The trail led to Adam Reeves, an architectural historian with expertise in peculiar spatial phenomena. His bond with Morgan transcended professional boundaries, delving into realms of shared curiosity and hidden knowledge. Reeves, devastated by Morgan's passing, spoke of the house's deceptive designs and its secrets waiting to be unveiled. A revelation from Alina Blackwood's grandson shed light on a chilling family secret: deaths within the house, always in the parlor, always with an air of tranquility. The family referred to it as the claiming, a force that beckoned souls to a mysterious fate. Journals spanning generations detailed similar occurrences, deaths attributed to an unseen influence. A hidden compartment behind the parlor fireplace revealed long-lost artifacts and Morgan's missing equipment. Among the relics lay a carved figurine symbolizing a deity of liminal spaces, connecting worlds unseen. The residue on the artifacts matched the alkaloid found in Morgan's system, deepening the enigma surrounding her demise. Further analysis of the house's dust patterns unveiled a startling revelation: another presence during Morgan's final moments. Unidentified fingerprints, not belonging to Morgan or any known visitor, were imprinted on doorknobs throughout the house. The mysteries seemed to multiply, weaving a web of intrigue and uncertainty. Tragically, Adam Reeves met a fate similar to Morgan's, his body discovered in a hauntingly familiar pose. Clutched in his hand was a key that unlocked the hidden compartment, a tangible link to the house's arcane past. His final message, a testament to the house's grip on perception, hinted at a chilling realization that once understood, escape becomes an unwanted prospect. The investigation, still ongoing, marked the house as a site of unsolved mysteries and unexplained deaths. Authorities condemned the Victorian, sealing its secrets within its walls, yet whispers persisted, tales of spectral lights and vanishing visitors haunting the nights. Some believed the house claimed those who delved too deep into its enigmatic nature, while others saw Morgan and Reeves as seekers of ancient truths that transcended ordinary reality. The ultimate truth remained elusive, akin to finding an exit in a labyrinth of endless corridors. In the house where all doors led back to the beginning, the boundaries between reality and the unknown blurred, leaving behind a legacy of secrets waiting to be unraveled. Story 14. In the heart of the city, there was a quaint coffee shop that held a mystery known only to a few. For years, a man frequented this place, his presence as familiar as the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. He had no name, just a face recognized by the barista and the regulars who shared the space with him in comfortable silence. One day, the man failed to appear at his usual table. Concerned, the staff contacted the authorities, leading Detective Sarah Mercer to investigate the enigma of the man known only as John Doe. Inside the abandoned wallet left behind, there was a driver's license with a face but no identity, a void where a name should have been. As Mercer delved deeper into the case, she uncovered perplexing security footage that defied logic. John Doe had entered the coffee shop, taken his seat, and then inexplicably vanished into thin air, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. The investigation took an eerie turn when Mercer discovered a blank business card with a cryptic phone number. Upon calling, the line connected to a silent void, hinting at a hidden world beyond comprehension. The enigmatic man's presence in the coffee shop became a puzzle with no solution. His notebook filled with coded messages and sketches of unfamiliar buildings added to the mystique surrounding his existence. As Mercer explored further, she noticed anomalies in the security footage, subtle disturbances hinting at something beyond the ordinary. A mirror in the shop, adorned with cryptic symbols, held secrets that defied explanation. With the help of a former physicist, Margaret Keller, Mercer uncovered the truth behind the man who defied reality. Daniel Weston, a brilliant theoretical physicist, had crossed boundaries of time and space in his quest for understanding. His experiments in temporal displacement and identity transference had led him to a place where realities converged, a place of infinite possibilities. The final revelation came when Mercer witnessed two versions of Daniel Weston existing simultaneously, a mirror image of a man caught between worlds. The shattered remains of the mirror whispered of experiments completed and windows closed, warning against further exploration. As the case remained officially unsolved, the coffee shop faded into memory, a sanctuary of mysteries lost to time. Daniel Weston's fate remained a haunting enigma, his legacy woven into the fabric of parallel realities. Detective Mercer, forever changed by the encounter with the man who transcended existence, found solace in her own reflections, a silent witness to the secrets that lingered in the shadows. And as the world moved on, whispers of a man who didn't exist echoed in the quiet corners of the city, a reminder of the thin veil between what is known and what lies beyond. Story 15. The morning unfolded with a gentle current, the water shimmering like a mirror, reflecting the stillness of the day. The fisherman's boat drifted lazily as he cast his line, the rhythmic motion lulling him into a state of quiet relaxation. It was in this tranquil setting that a peculiar sight caught his eye: a suitcase, bobbing near the shore as if abandoned by the tide. Initially dismissing it as discarded items, he felt a growing unease as he drew closer. The pungent odor that wafted from the case was thick and suffocating, a tangible presence in the serene atmosphere. Wrapped in chains, its rusted edges whispered of secrets long submerged. Authorities were summoned, and as the case was pried open, the grim truth unfurled. Instead of garments, it held a macabre tableau, a tangle of hair, fingers frozen in a silent plea. Nestled at the bottom, a note whispered haunting words: "This isn't the first." Detective Sarah Mercer arrived at the scene, her steps measured as she absorbed the chilling display. The victim, a woman in her prime, bore the markings of a life cut short by the waters. The medical examiner's meticulous work painted a somber picture, each detail a brushstroke in a portrait of tragedy. What struck Mercer was not just the manner of disposal, but the eerie reverence shown to the victim. Despite the brutality of her fate, the woman's appearance spoke of care and attention: manicured nails, styled hair, adorned in finery. She was not merely discarded, Mercer murmured, her gaze fixed on the rippling river. She was presented like a twisted offering to the waters. The victim, identified as Catherine Walsh, a successful real estate agent, lived a life of solitude and ambition. Her disappearance, a jarring absence in a world of high-stakes deals and polished facades. As the investigation unfolded, Walsh's meticulously curated life unraveled before Mercer's eyes. Her home, a sanctuary of order and precision, held secrets in its pristine facade. Every corner whispered of control, every object in its appointed place. Yet a drawer slightly ajar beckoned, revealing a leather-bound journal that spoke of unseen shadows. The final entry, a cryptic message of lurking danger, hinted at a life overshadowed by unseen eyes. Digging deeper, Mercer unearthed a web of mystery entwining Walsh's digital footprint, a tapestry of cryptic messages, a pattern of surveillance. The pieces began to align, painting a portrait of a predator lurking in the shadows, drawn to perfection like a moth to flame. Ritual, not rage, Mercer mused, her mind a labyrinth of connections, each thread leading to a darker truth. A breakthrough emerged from an unexpected source, a pawnshop owner's recognition of a distinctive necklace, a pawned memory of a life lost. Michael Linden, a nondescript maintenance worker, emerged as the orchestrator of Walsh's demise. Surveillance footage weaved a tale of obsession, of quiet footsteps echoing in the halls of a life meticulously observed. Linden's apartment, a gallery of stolen moments, a shrine to perfection warped by his twisted gaze. As Linden sat in the interrogation room, his demeanor a mask of composure, the chilling truth spilled from his lips like poisoned honey. In his eyes, imperfection was a sin, a flaw to be eradicated by his meticulous hand. The victims, mere canvases for his twisted artistry, bore the weight of his delusion, their lives snuffed out in a ritual of correction. The trial unfolded like a dark symphony, the families of the victims left to grapple with the horror of their loved ones' fates. Linden's sentence, a life behind bars, offered little solace to those haunted by his shadow. For Mercer, the case marked a chapter closed, yet the echoes lingered in the silence of her thoughts. What drove Linden to such depravity? What fractured mirror of self-reflection led him down this path of darkness? The river, a silent witness to the unfolding tragedy, continued its timeless dance downstream, carrying secrets within its depths. In the precinct on Mercer's desk lay the chilling remnants of a shattered reality, a reminder that beneath the veneer of normalcy, monsters lurk in the shadows. And in the stillness of the night, as the world drifted into slumber, the echoes of a twisted mind whispered on the breeze, a haunting lullaby of the darkness that dwells within. Story 16. The tale unfolds in the quiet corners of a town where shadows linger and mysteries whisper in the night. The costume shop, once a hub of whimsy and wonder, now stood on the brink of closure, its shelves stripped bare as remnants of past celebrations awaited new homes. Among the forgotten treasures, a woman, drawn by fate's unseen hand, discovered a mask of exquisite craftsmanship resting on a dusty shelf. Its delicate features held a strange allure, both captivating and unnerving in their lifelike precision. As she lifted the mask, a shiver danced down her spine, a silent warning that went unnoticed in the dim light of the shop. The cashier's eyes widened briefly, a flicker of recognition passing through his gaze before he composed himself. "That's not ours," his words hung in the air like a veil of mystery, a puzzle left unsolved. Intrigued yet undeterred, the woman inspected the mask, searching for a clue to its origin. But the tag that should have revealed its story was nowhere to be found. Without a second thought, she carried the mask home, unaware of the shadow it would cast over her life. That very night, as the world slumbered in hushed tranquility, she awoke to a soft rustling, a whisper of fabric stirring in the darkness. Panic gripped her heart as she scanned the room, her eyes falling upon the nightstand where the mask now sat, its haunting gaze fixed upon her with an intensity that chilled her to the core. The woman, known to the world as Catherine Reed, met her fate in the stillness of her own home, a tragedy unfolding in the silent hours before dawn. Her neighbor, drawn by a sense of unease, ventured to her doorstep, book in hand, only to be greeted by a scene that defied reason. The front door stood ajar, a portal to a realm of shadows and unanswered questions, while the morning light spilled like liquid gold into the dim interior, illuminating a truth too dark to comprehend. Detective Morgan arrived, a figure of authority in a world teetering on the edge of uncertainty. Forensics labored in the background, capturing the essence of tragedy in each flash of the camera, each click of the shutter. The room bore witness to a life extinguished in the blink of an eye, a soul adrift in the realm between the living and the dead. No signs of forced entry, the officers murmured, their voices a somber backdrop to the unfolding drama. The detective, a seeker of hidden truths, observed the scene with eyes that missed nothing, a mind that sought order in chaos. A single drawer askew, a lipstick-stained water glass, mundane details woven into a tapestry of loss and regret. The medical examiner, a harbinger of finality, knelt by Catherine's side, his expression grave as he delivered his grim assessment. No wounds marred her flesh, no outward signs of violence, yet the truth lay etched upon her features, an expression of terror frozen in time, a silent scream that echoed through the void. Catherine, a woman of discerning tastes and a keen eye for authenticity, had lived a life shrouded in quiet elegance. Her colleagues spoke of her with reverence, citing her ability to uncover the truth hidden in plain sight, to discern the real from the counterfeit with a single glance. But even her sharp instincts had failed to protect her from the malevolent force that now held her in its icy grip. The trail of clues led the detective to the costume shop, a ghostly shell of its former self, haunted by the specter of past misdeeds. The owner, a man burdened by secrets too dark to share, revealed the mask's twisted origins, a tale woven from threads of tragedy and betrayal. Each mask, a harbinger of doom, a vessel for ancient forces beyond mortal comprehension. Forensics unearthed a clue buried in the fabric of Catherine's fate, microscopic fibers whispering of a struggle unseen, of a battle fought in silence. Human hair entwined with an unknown substance, a riddle without a solution, a mystery without end. The past echoed in the present, a chorus of voices crying out for justice, for redemption. The retired detective, a keeper of forgotten lore, shared a revelation that shook the foundations of reality. Ancient symbols hidden within the masks whispered of a ritual as old as time itself, a dance of souls bound by fate's unyielding hand. The truth lay before them, a tapestry of lies and half-truths woven into the fabric of existence. In the depths of Catherine's home, a journal lay hidden, its pages a testament to her descent into madness. Words scrawled in desperation spoke of a malevolent presence, of a mask that watched and waited, hungering for the souls of the living. The collector, a puppet master in a game of shadows, pulled the strings of fate with callous disregard for human life. The detective, a guardian of truth in a world of lies, pieced together the puzzle with a steady hand and a resolute heart. The cause of Catherine's demise revealed itself in a cruel twist of fate, a heart stopped by fear, a spirit broken by terror. But the true horror lay in the shadows, in the figure that moved with her gait yet bore no soul, in the mask that hungered for the light behind human eyes. As the investigation unfolded, a chilling truth emerged, a cycle of death and rebirth, a dance of shadows played out across the canvas of time. The missing mask, a specter of doom, eluded capture, slipping through the cracks of reality like smoke on the wind. Its hunger unsated, its thirst unquenched, it waited in the shadows for its next victim, its next vessel. The detective, haunted by the specter of Catherine's fate, kept her journal close, a talisman against the encroaching darkness. In the stillness of the night, she felt the mask's gaze upon her, a chill that seeped into her bones, a whisper of impending doom. But she stood firm, a beacon of light in a world consumed by shadows, a guardian of the truth that lay hidden in the heart of darkness. And so the mask remains at large, a phantom in the night, a specter of fear and despair. Its story, a tapestry of sorrow and regret, weaves through the fabric of time, a reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that lurks within us all. And as the world sleeps, unaware of the danger that lurks in the shadows, the mask waits, patient and unyielding, for its next victim to cross its path. Story 17. The parcel arrived mysteriously at Sarah Miller's doorstep, shrouded in intrigue. No return label, no tracking number, just a damp cardboard box whispering secrets in the morning dew. It wasn't intended for her, the name on it foreign, yet her address was a perfect match. Curiosity, that insatiable urge, stirred within her. She should have left it untouched, abandoned on the porch, but the unknown beckoned her closer. With trembling hands, she unsealed the box, expecting mundane contents like books or clothes. Instead, nestled inside was a lone VHS tape, accompanied by a cryptic note that simply read, "Watch alone." Sarah hesitated, her heart fluttering with a mixture of apprehension and curiosity. The weight of the tape felt peculiar, heavier than it should have been, as if carrying the burden of forbidden knowledge. Her fingertips traced the worn edges, feeling the stories etched into the plastic casing. The handwritten note bore the marks of urgency, each stroke a plea for attention. As she stood in her kitchen, the world outside continued its rhythm, a distant dog barking, children's laughter blending into the air, the persistent hum of a lawnmower. Unaware of the enigma that had just crossed her threshold, Sarah brought the package inside, uncertainty clouding her thoughts. The name Daniel Whitaker meant nothing to her. In her years residing in the house, mail for him had never graced her mailbox. The previous occupants, the Johnsons, had bid farewell, leaving behind a legacy of memories. Yet the tape called to her, a mystery wrapped in darkness. Against her better judgment, Sarah inserted the tape into her forgotten VCR. At first, static danced across the screen, a haze of white noise slowly sharpening into focus. A dimly lit room materialized, shadows dancing in the flickering light of a single lamp. The camera angle was askew, lending an air of urgency to the scene. A man, his features cloaked in shadow, sat before her. "My name is Daniel Whitaker." His voice, a whisper in the silence, filled the room. "If you're watching this, someone has found you, and they will find me too." Leaning closer, he revealed a face weathered by sleepless nights and unseen battles. "I didn't harm her, you must believe me, but they have twisted the truth, planted false evidence against me." The camera trembled as Daniel adjusted it, unveiling a barren room devoid of comfort, a transient abode for a man on the run. "They framed me," his voice wavered, eyes haunted by the weight of injustice. "I never knew Catherine Walsh until her lifeless form graced the news. They seek to paint me as the villain, but I am but a pawn in their wicked game." Detective Eliza Ramirez sat in her office, the VHS tape before her a mere echo of the enigma that plagued her thoughts. 5 tapes, each bearing the desperate plea of Daniel Whitaker, the prime suspect in Catherine Walsh's murder, a man who had vanished into the shadows, leaving behind a trail of uncertainty. The Walsh case, once straightforward, now twisted like a labyrinth of deception. DNA evidence, witness testimonies, all meticulously crafted to paint Whitaker as the culprit. But the tapes, they whispered a different truth, a truth veiled in shadows and half-truths. As Ramirez delved deeper, a web of conspiracy unfurled before her eyes. Catherine Walsh, a whistleblower against a powerful pharmaceutical giant, Pharmacorp. Evidence of corruption, of silenced voices, of a truth that threatened to shatter the facade of power. The pieces of the puzzle slowly aligned, revealing a sinister plot orchestrated by unseen hands. Sarah Miller, recipient of another mysterious package, found herself entwined in a narrative of deceit and redemption. Documents unveiled, secrets exposed, a truth waiting to be unearthed. And in the quiet confines of a storage unit, justice awaited its reckoning. Daniel Whitaker's journal, the key to unraveling the conspiracy, lay hidden amongst the shadows. The orchestrators of deception unmasked, their downfall imminent. In the end, justice prevailed not in the clang of handcuffs, but in the quiet resolve of truth. Executives indicted, secrets laid bare, a darkness dispelled by the light of honesty. Daniel Whitaker emerged from the shadows, a ghost of his former self, burdened by the weight of betrayal. Sarah and Daniel, two strangers bound by fate, stood in silent acknowledgement of the thin line between truth and fiction. "Why me?" Sarah's voice, a whisper in the wind, carried the weight of unanswered questions. "Why choose my address?" And in that moment of quiet reflection, Daniel's gaze met hers, weary yet resolute. "The algorithm chose you," he murmured, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. "In a world of manufactured truths, you were the beacon of clarity, the unexpected ally in a sea of deception." The VHS tapes, once harbingers of mystery, now stood as relics of a journey untaken. A reminder that sometimes truth arrives in unexpected packages, bearing unfamiliar names, waiting for the curious soul brave enough to venture into the unknown. Story 18: The Enigmatic Doppelganger. She wiped away the mist on the mirror, gazing at her reflection with a sense of familiarity tinged with unease. Her features appeared as they should, her attire unchanged. Yet an unsettling feeling crept over her the longer she stared. A flicker caught in the corner of her eye, a movement not of her own making. When she turned away, her reflection remained motionless, observing her every move. This was the beginning of the enigmatic case of Rebecca Thorne. It all started on that peculiar day in her tranquil suburban apartment. Rebecca led a solitary life, known to her neighbors as a meticulous and introverted woman who preferred solitude but maintained a polite demeanor with those around her. Her days revolved around her job as a data analyst, a world of routine and precision that offered no hint of the mysterious events that would soon unfold. Initially, the disturbances seemed trivial. Objects in her home had been subtly rearranged, nothing missing, just out of place. A mug shifted to a different shelf, books rearranged on the table, her toothbrush oddly positioned. She brushed off these occurrences as mere lapses in memory, attributing them to her long hours spent engrossed in work, staring at endless spreadsheets under harsh fluorescent lights. It wasn't until weeks had passed that Rebecca finally reached out to the authorities, and Detective Marion Shaw was assigned to the case. At first glance, there seemed to be no evidence of a crime, just a woman feeling a sense of wrongness within her own home. The puzzling incidents were noted but deemed low priority, categorized as potential mental health concerns rather than criminal matters. However, everything changed with the incident in the bathroom mirror. During her subsequent interaction with the police, Rebecca recounted a chilling experience of her reflection moving independently, a sensation of being surveilled even in solitude. This time, she had proof a security camera trained on her front door. The footage unearthed a startling revelation that sent shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned officers. The video captured Rebecca leaving for work in the morning, followed by an exact replica of her entering the apartment shortly after, using a key. Forensic experts scrutinized the footage for any signs of tampering or manipulation, but found none. The intruder resembled Rebecca in every aspect, down to the smallest detail, yet Rebecca was already recorded at her workplace across town at the same time. Detective Shaw labeled it a doppelganger scenario, a meticulous imitator who had mastered every facet of Rebecca's life with astonishing precision. The investigation delved deeper, but the evidence presented an eerie puzzle. Fingerprints matched only Rebecca's, and no foreign DNA was discovered. Neighbors had noticed nothing amiss, only witnessing Rebecca's regular comings and goings. As the disturbances escalated, Rebecca meticulously documented each anomaly. Food vanished from her fridge, her computer displayed searches she hadn't made, and unsettling selfies appeared on her phone, capturing moments she had no memory of. Some images depicted her with a subtly off-kilter expression, hinting at a sinister presence invading her life. In a moment of revelation, investigators discerned a pattern in the security footage. The doppelganger struck only when Rebecca left for prearranged appointments, a calculated surveillance strategy aimed at seamlessly slipping into her life. A forensic psychologist posited a theory of fixation, suggesting that the perpetrator harbored an obsession with assuming Rebecca's identity, a desire to supplant her completely driven by an internal fracture. The focus narrowed on a former colleague, Lily Winters, who had exhibited erratic behavior before being terminated. Lily's fixation on Rebecca was evident in unsettling emails sent post-dismissal, hinting at a warped desire to merge their identities. A search of Lily's residence uncovered a chilling replica of Rebecca's life, a shrine-like room filled with clandestine photographs, wardrobe duplicates, and meticulous notes on Rebecca's mannerisms. The most disturbing find was a series of videos showing Lily practicing Rebecca's every move, a haunting progression from clumsy imitation to near-perfect replication. It became apparent that Lily's intentions were not just to mimic, but to erase Rebecca entirely. The discovery of sophisticated tools for key replication and electronic access further underscored the depth of Lily's intrusion into Rebecca's existence. When the authorities moved to apprehend Lily, she had vanished, leaving behind a hastily abandoned home. A nationwide manhunt ensued, and Rebecca was relocated under protective custody as her former life became a stage for Lily's audacious charade. The climax arrived when security footage captured someone identical to Rebecca infiltrating her former workplace, assuming her role effortlessly. The chilling reality dawned Lily had seamlessly assumed Rebecca's identity, leaving the real Rebecca in seclusion. Lily remained at large, and Rebecca opted to forge a new path, adopting a new persona in a hidden refuge. Detective Shaw, haunted by the case, kept a photograph of the two eerily similar women on her desk, a reminder of the thin line between identity and imitation. As Shaw often mused to her colleagues, the true terror lay not in resembling another, but in the sinister desire to obliterate one's own self in pursuit of another's existence. Identity, she emphasized, was a precious treasure to be safeguarded, its worth only realized when threatened by those who seek to claim it as their own. Story 19. In a quaint Victorian home, a young woman with a growing belly embarked on the task of repainting the nursery in preparation for her impending arrival. The walls, once adorned in a soft, faded blue, now awaited a fresh coat of white paint. As she diligently applied the first strokes, a hidden mystery began to unravel. Beneath the layers of paint, obscured letters began to emerge, gradually revealing a cryptic message: "Don't let it hear you." Startled by this unexpected finding, the woman took a step back, only to notice something even more unsettling: tiny handprints imprinted in the fresh paint, positioned too high for any child to have reached. This eerie discovery set the stage for what would become known as the Whispering House case. Detective Sarah Klein, with a notebook clutched in her hand, arrived at the Morgan residence to investigate the mysterious events unfolding within. The pregnant homeowner, her tired eyes betraying sleepless nights, recounted the chilling discovery of the hidden message and handprints left by unseen forces. It was revealed that the previous owners had abruptly vacated the premises under mysterious circumstances, leaving behind a trail of whispers among the neighbors. No moving trucks, just essentials hastily packed into a car, prompting rumors of a hasty departure. As Detective Klein delved deeper into the history of the house, she uncovered a series of peculiar occurrences that had plagued previous residents over the years. Families had come and gone, each staying for a brief period before succumbing to unexplained phenomena, whispers in the night, spectral laughter, and unsettling messages appearing on nursery walls. Further investigation led the detective to a dark chapter in the house's past. Long ago, the property had belonged to Eleanor Blackwood, a widow who had operated an orphanage within its walls. Tragic tales of 5 missing children under her care hinted at a sinister secret hidden within the confines of the house. Eleanor's twisted belief in harnessing the energy of orphaned children for her own longevity unraveled as the detective unearthed a hidden room behind the nursery wall. Within this grim chamber lay the remains of 5 young souls, their identities preserved by engraved pendants, a grim testament to their tragic fate. The house, now tainted by the echoes of the past, bore witness to the detective's relentless pursuit of justice for the forgotten victims. Luminol revealed a multitude of handprints adorning the nursery walls, a silent testament to the children's desperate attempts to escape their cruel fate. As the case reached its conclusion with a somber burial for the victims, the house stood silent and empty, its walls echoing with the whispers of the past. Despite the closure brought by the investigation, an unexplainable presence lingered within the condemned structure, a spectral reminder of the darkness that dwelled within. Detective Klein, haunted by the lingering echoes of the case, preserved a chilling photograph of the glowing handprints in the darkness, a poignant reminder that some crimes leave indelible marks that transcend time and paint, forever etched into the fabric of a house's history. Story 20. The worn envelope, aged and yellowed, held a fresh stamp recently dispatched. With deliberate care, the detective unfolded its contents. A single sheet of paper emerged, the message typed hastily in an uneven script. "I am sorry for what I did." A dampness clung to the paper, carrying a faint scent of iron. A reddish smear along the bottom edge caught their attention, unmistakably not ink. Detective Sarah Morgan deftly placed the letter into an evidence bag, her gloved hands moving with practiced precision. The forensics team's findings confirmed her suspicions. The reddish stain was human blood, matching DNA from an unsolved homicide that had plagued the department for years. The victim, Rebecca Warren, a young journalist, had been discovered in her apartment with fatal stab wounds. Her laptop was missing, notes scattered a grim puzzle hinting at a connection to her investigative work. Despite exhaustive efforts, the case had gone cold until the arrival of this letter, addressed simply to Homicide Division. Sparse fingerprints on the paper and envelope hinted at a gloved sender. The postmark, however, offered a rare light after months of stagnation. Gathering her team in the dimly lit briefing room, Morgan pinned the letter's image to the board adorned with fruitless lights and dead ends. "This changes everything," she declared. "Our perpetrator shows remorse." Detective James Chen, her longtime partner in the case, studied the letter thoughtfully. "Or perhaps they wish to deceive us," he countered, suggesting the blood stain as a taunting ploy. Tracing the unique typewriter patterns to a long out of production model, the forensics team embarked on a search, reaching out to antique enthusiasts across the region. Concurrently, they delved deeper into Rebecca's life. Described as relentless in her pursuit of truth, she had been investigating a wealthy family embroiled in a bitter inheritance dispute. Suspicions turned toward family members, particularly the deceased patriarch's heirs. Revisiting interviews and evidence, they uncovered subtle shifts in Rebecca's boyfriend, Michael Barnes' behavior. His initial grief now tinged with unease under scrutiny. Rebecca mentioned feeling watched, he confessed, his demeanor fraught with regret. As their focus narrowed, a second letter arrived, bearing the same typewritten message in blood, delving further into Rebecca's knowledge of the family's secrets. Their investigation led to the family mansion, where the eldest son, Richard, exhibited suspicious composure when questioned about vintage typewriters. A breakthrough came with microscopic fibers on the envelopes, linking to stationery exclusive to the youngest daughter, Eleanor. Richard's deception unraveled with the discovery of incriminating evidence hidden in his home, connecting him directly to Rebecca's murder. The unraveling web extended to Michael, revealing financial transactions and a deadly secret shared between the two men. Michael's confession laid bare a sinister plot gone awry, exposing Richard's ruthless ambition. Eleanor's pivotal recording sealed Richard's fate, capturing his chilling directive to silence Rebecca permanently. In the courtroom, Richard's protestations of innocence crumbled against overwhelming evidence. The jury swiftly returned a guilty verdict, delivering justice as Rebecca's parents found solace in closure. The blood-stained letters, poignant reminders of a meticulous crime undone by guilt, remained in evidence, a haunting testament to the weight of conscience and the unraveling of the seemingly perfect crime. Rebecca Warren's case stood as a poignant lesson in detective work, a testament to the power of old-fashioned clues and the inexorable pull of truth in the shadowy realm of mysteries unsolved. Story 21. In the heart of the city, an apartment stood silent for months, waiting for new occupants to breathe life back into its empty rooms. When the new tenants finally arrived, their expectations were low, just a layer of dust, perhaps a few pieces of abandoned furniture left behind. However, one door within the apartment refused to yield to their gentle nudges. It stood stubbornly locked, a mystery waiting to be unraveled. With a bit of coaxing, the landlord managed to pry it open, revealing a small closet that held more than just old coats and forgotten items. The interior of the closet told a chilling tale. The walls were marred by deep, ragged scratches, as if someone had clawed desperately at the wooden surface in a frantic attempt to escape. Nestled in the corner, an ancient flip phone lay dormant, its screen still illuminated by a single unread message. Detective Morgan Shaw, a seasoned investigator with a keen eye for detail, felt a shiver run down her spine as she surveyed the scene before her. It wasn't the sight of blood or violence that unsettled her, but the haunting implication behind those scratch marks. It was as though the very essence of fear had been etched into the wood by someone trapped in a battle for survival. Turning to her partner, Officer Reed, she issued commands with a sense of urgency in her voice. "We need forensics on site immediately," she instructed, her gaze fixed on the scratches that marred the closet walls. "And bring me the records of the previous tenants." The message on the forgotten phone simply stated, "I know what you did." The landlord, a nervous man with a perpetually trembling demeanor, revealed that the previous tenant had vanished without a trace, leaving behind unpaid rent. "A young woman kept to herself," he muttered, avoiding eye contact as his gaze flickered towards the closet. "Never caused any trouble." Forensic analysis uncovered a chilling revelation within the scratches on the walls. Most of the blood samples matched a single individual, presumably the missing tenant, Emma Caldwell, a 28-year-old who had been reported missing after ceasing to show up for work. However, 2 DNA samples stood out. One remained a mystery in the database, while the other belonged to a man who had supposedly perished in a car accident 2 years prior. As the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, Detective Shaw delved deeper into Emma's life before her disappearance. Her apartment bore the traces of an interrupted existence: unopened mail, a forgotten coffee mug in the sink, a neatly made bed that hadn't been disturbed. Phone records hinted at a sudden halt in her regular calls to her sister, replaced by numerous interactions with an unidentified number in the weeks leading up to her vanishing. Officer Reed's investigation unearthed a potential light. Emma had mentioned a mysterious new boyfriend, described only as intense and private. Surveillance footage captured a shadowy figure entering Emma's building shortly after her on the night she disappeared, his features obscured by a baseball cap that shielded his face from view. The breakthrough came when forensics identified partial fingerprints on the closet's interior doorknob, a match to Derek Mercer, a man presumed dead but whose DNA lingered on the walls. He staged his death, Shaw concluded, her mind racing to unravel the connection between Mercer and Emma's harrowing fate. Further exploration led the detectives to another missing persons case involving Lynette Porter, who had vanished without a trace 3 years earlier. Lynette's description aligned with that of a woman seen frequenting Emma's apartment, sparking a chain of revelations that linked the two women to Derek Mercer's twisted web of deceit. A trail of evidence pointed towards a secluded property owned by Mercer's family, where a grim discovery awaited them. Behind heavy basement doors, they found Lynette Porter alive but broken, a living testament to the horrors she had endured in captivity reminiscent of Emma's own confinement. As the investigation deepened, journals detailing Mercer's fixation on dominance, photographs of his victims, and incriminating video footage emerged, painting a portrait of a man consumed by a desire to inflict suffering and control. Mercer's dark obsession with confining women in tight spaces unfolded before the eyes of the investigators, revealing a depth of depravity that chilled even the most seasoned law enforcement officials. The hunt for Derek Mercer spanned multiple jurisdictions, a relentless pursuit fueled by the urgency to bring a sadistic predator to justice. When Mercer was apprehended at a bus terminal, his calm demeanor belied the twisted motives that lurked beneath the surface. In his possession, authorities found a new identity, a ticket to an unknown coastal destination, and chilling reminders of his past atrocities. During interrogation, Mercer's unsettling serenity never wavered as he spun a web of deception to justify his heinous actions. She sent that message herself, he claimed, attempting to distort the truth behind Emma's final plea for help. But the walls of lies he had constructed began to crumble in the face of overwhelming evidence and the unwavering determination of those seeking justice for his victims. The trial that followed laid bare the intricate scheme Mercer had orchestrated to evade capture, to prey on unsuspecting women who bore a resemblance to his initial victim. Emma's body remained a haunting mystery, lost to the confines of the closet where she had met her tragic end, her futile attempts to seek help forever etched in the scratches that lined the walls. As the jury swiftly returned a guilty verdict on all charges, Mercer's enigmatic smile hinted at a satisfaction known only to him, a perverse satisfaction derived from a twisted logic that defied comprehension. In a courtroom filled with echoes of anguish and resilience, Lynette Porter found her voice, proclaiming a defiant resolve to reclaim her place in the light after enduring the darkness that Mercer had imposed upon her. The aftermath of the case resonated within law enforcement circles, prompting a reevaluation of missing persons protocols with a focus on identifying patterns of relationships and thorough property investigations. Detective Shaw kept a solemn memento from Emma's apartment, a piece of the closet door mounted in her office, a symbol of the resilience and courage displayed by those who fight to survive in the face of unspeakable horrors. Story 22. In the heart of the city, the old library stood, its fate sealed by the impending demolition. The workers toiled tirelessly, dismantling the structure brick by brick until one fateful moment changed everything. A worker, sweat glistening on his brow, stumbled upon a hidden latch nestled within the dusty bookshelf. With a gentle click, the bookshelf swung open, revealing a passage shrouded in darkness, beckoning like a whispered secret. The hidden room, untouched by time, exhaled a heavy, musty air that hinted at long-forgotten mysteries. No furniture adorned the space except for a solitary chair, its presence ominous as it stood bolted to the floor. Etched repeatedly on the walls in frantic scrawls, a haunting message lingered, "I am still here." The foreman, a sense of unease creeping into his bones, swiftly radioed for the police. What began as a routine demolition took a sharp turn into the realm of the unknown. Detective Morgan Walsh, a seasoned investigator with a keen eye for the peculiar, arrived at the scene. His flashlight pierced the shadows, revealing the chilling mantra that adorned the walls. "Secure the scene," Walsh commanded, his voice a solitary echo in the confined space. "Let no one disturb a single thing until forensics arrives." The history of the library whispered tales of the Harrington family, a lineage laced with shadows and secrets. Once esteemed pillars of the community, the family had gifted the library to the public following the enigmatic disappearance of their daughter, Rebecca. She had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only whispers and unanswered questions. As the forensic team delved into the hidden room, they uncovered traces of a harrowing past, a chair bearing hair and fibers, walls whispering secrets in the language of blood and skin cells. The chair, a silent witness, bore marks of struggle and captivity, a testament to untold suffering. Walsh, his intuition ablaze, delved deeper into the Harrington family's legacy. The timing of the library's donation after Rebecca's disappearance tugged at his instincts, hinting at a connection veiled in darkness. A contractor, loyal to the family, had installed the bookshelf concealing the hidden room, his payment suspiciously generous. Interviews with former library staff unveiled a cryptic truth. Maxwell Harrington, Rebecca's uncle, had harbored a peculiar attachment to the library's forbidden section. His insistence on its preservation raised eyebrows, casting shadows of doubt on his intentions. The truth unfurled like a sinister tapestry when DNA evidence linked Rebecca to the hidden room. She had not fled, she had been held captive by someone she trusted. A warrant led detectives to Maxwell's doorstep, where a journal hidden in his study whispered of obsession and betrayal. Maxwell's stoic facade crumbled as evidence surfaced, revealing a chilling narrative of greed and desperation. Rebecca, a threat to his deceit, had been silenced in the darkness of the hidden room, her life snuffed out in a cruel act of self-preservation. Beneath the floorboards, Rebecca's remains lay in quiet repose, a tragic echo of a life stolen too soon. The Harrington family, shadows of their former selves, bore witness to Maxwell's reckoning, a justice long overdue. The library, once slated for destruction, now stood as a monument to a life extinguished and a truth unveiled. Flowers adorned its entrance, a tribute to a soul lost but never forgotten. And in the silence of the hidden room, Rebecca's whispered plea, "I am still here," resonated, a solemn vow that justice, though delayed, had found its way home. Story 23. The old Polaroid held secrets within its faded borders, capturing a birthday celebration frozen in time. Smiles illuminated by flickering candles told a story of joy and togetherness, seemingly ordinary at first glance. However, when Sarah Winters uncovered the box of forgotten memories in her mother's attic, she stumbled upon something unsettling. Among the familiar faces of family members, there lurked a mysterious presence, a man lurking in the background, gradually drawing closer with each passing photo. The collection of photographs, neatly preserved under the label Memories, should have brought comfort to Sarah during the somber task of clearing out her mother's belongings. Yet as she delved deeper into the images, a sense of unease crept over her like a shroud. The shadowy figure first appeared as a mere silhouette on the periphery during her childhood birthday party, barely noticeable in the background. In subsequent photos, he insidiously made his way closer, his obscured face a chilling enigma. Disturbed and bewildered, Sarah reached out to her father, seeking answers to the enigmatic figure haunting the cherished moments captured on film. But her father's response was tinged with disbelief, denying any knowledge of the stranger in the photographs. Desperate for clarity, Sarah turned to Detective Marcus Reed, laying out the eerie progression of the mysterious man's presence at the birthday party. As the rain whispered against the windows of the precinct, Detective Reed scrutinized the photos with a keen eye, his demeanor a blend of intrigue and skepticism. The gradual advancement of the shadowy figure through the frames painted a sinister picture, one of calculated movement towards the unsuspecting children in the photographs. Despite theories of a hidden photographer or unknown guest, the truth remained elusive, shrouded in mystery. With meticulous determination, the detective launched an investigation, reaching out to every surviving attendee of the birthday party, only to find no recollection of the enigmatic man. The remote location of the gathering, shielded from prying eyes, added another layer of perplexity to the unfolding puzzle. Facial recognition technology yielded no results, leaving the figure's identity cloaked in shadow. However, the mystery deepened as Sarah discovered more photographs in family albums, each unveiling the same haunting presence lurking in the background of various celebrations throughout the years. An expert in digital forensics unveiled hidden details within the images, unraveling a trail of clues that led to a chilling revelation. Through dental records and painstaking analysis, the shadowy figure was identified as Robert Keller, a maintenance worker with a dark past intertwined with unsolved child abductions from decades past. His connection to the vacation property where Sarah's birthday had taken place unveiled a sinister truth that the man in the shadows had once walked among them, concealing his malevolent intentions behind a facade of normalcy. As authorities unearthed buried remnants of long-lost children beneath Keller's former residence, the weight of the chilling discovery settled heavily on Sarah's shoulders. Closure came at a steep price, as DNA confirmed the fate of one of the missing children, bringing a sense of bittersweet resolution to decades-old mysteries. Alone in her apartment, surrounded by the haunting photographs that had unveiled a hidden chapter of darkness, Sarah reflected on the chilling truth that had surfaced. The shadow in the family photos, once a spectral presence lurking on the fringes of joyous occasions, had been unmasked by the relentless pursuit of justice. In the quiet of her solitude, Sarah returned the photos to their box, now transformed into a repository of harrowing evidence. The unseen threats captured within the frames served as a stark reminder that evil could masquerade in plain sight, moving through celebrations unnoticed, leaving behind a trail of sorrow and unanswered questions. As Sarah closed the lid on the box of memories, she carried with her the knowledge that some mysteries, once concealed in the shadows of the past, could only be unraveled through the unwavering light of truth. In the stillness of the night, the haunting presence of the shadowy figure lingered, a spectral reminder of the fragile boundary between innocence and malevolence, hidden in the depths of time. Story 24. Once upon a time, she dreaded venturing up to the attic, but circumstances left her no choice. A fierce storm had breached the roof, ushering her into a realm of forgotten relics cloaked in dust and cobwebs. Amidst the shadows, a peculiar sight awaited her: a weathered dollhouse, intricately crafted with precision, its miniature furniture meticulously arranged. Yet her unease deepened as she gazed inside. The figures within were not mere dolls, they were tiny, hand-carved replicas of her family members. Each figure mirrored the exact positions of her loved ones downstairs, with one glaring exception. The figure meant to represent her stood by the attic entrance, a silent sentinel watching over the scene. Running her finger along the miniature roof, Rebecca Morgan felt a shiver run down her spine, distinct from the icy draft swirling through the attic. The presence of the dollhouse puzzled her, for this was not her childhood abode, but a temporary dwelling her family had recently moved into. The unsettling discovery prompted Rebecca to contact the authorities in a state of distress. Law enforcement officers arrived at the suburban residence to find a family gripped by fear, huddled in the living room, unwilling to return to the upper floors. Detective Sarah Harmon, the lead investigator, initially brushed off their concerns as a possible prank or the product of an anxious adjustment to a new environment. However, the meticulous craftsmanship of the dollhouse left a lingering impression on her. As Detective Harmon delved deeper into the case, she marveled at the intricate details captured within each miniature figurine: the father's receding hairline, the teenager's hoodie, even the mother's tiny birthmark. The discovery of unfamiliar fingerprints on the dollhouse and microscopic cameras hidden within the figures unraveled a web of surveillance that chilled even the seasoned detective. The captured footage revealed a disturbing pattern. The positions of the miniature family members mirrored their real-life counterparts, not just on that fateful evening, but over various days, indicating a prolonged period of observation. The investigation took a chilling turn when a concealed basement entrance was unearthed behind a pantry wall, unveiling a clandestine living space where the intruder had covertly resided before the Morgans' arrival. Traces of sustenance in a sleeping area hinted at a prolonged stay, raising questions about how the perpetrator had entered the premises unnoticed. Property records revealed a vacant period prior to the Morgans' occupancy, with the previous elderly owners passing away under mysterious circumstances. Interviews with neighbors yielded sparse clues, except for a fleeting mention of lights flickering in the empty house during its unoccupied phase. Digital forensics unveiled a sinister truth as surveillance data from the dollhouse led investigators to a secluded apartment across town. Within its walls, a trove of photographs and journals chronicling the lives of multiple families came to light. The apartment's tenant, Martin Wells, the son of the deceased homeowners, harbored a disturbing fixation on the properties and their inhabitants. During interrogation, Wells remained eerily composed, divulging his obsessive need to monitor the families residing in what he perceived as his rightful domain. The dollhouses he meticulously crafted symbolized his control over the lives unfolding within the walls he once called home. A psychological evaluation unveiled a profound delusion rooted in loss and possession, transforming ordinary families into unwitting players in his twisted narrative. The Morgans never returned to the house, haunted by the realization that they had been unwitting pawns in Wells's disturbing game. The legal proceedings unearthed a trail of offenses: stalking, invasion of privacy, illegal surveillance, all stemming from a deranged need for dominance. The judge, acknowledging the profound violation suffered by the Morgan family, delivered a stern sentence condemning Wells's actions as a breach of trust and security. The case sent shockwaves through the community, prompting a reevaluation of real estate regulations and tenant protections. Rebecca, scarred by the ordeal, found solace in a new dwelling far from the shadows of the past. Yet the specter of surveillance lingered, manifesting in her vigilance over hidden spaces and the removal of all reminders of the dollhouse from their new abode. As the chapter closed on this harrowing saga, the unseen eyes of Martin Wells continued to haunt Rebecca's thoughts, a reminder that some secrets lie hidden in plain sight, waiting to be uncovered in the stillness of the night. Story 25. In the attic, beneath a worn blanket, they discovered it. A porcelain doll, ancient and fragile, with eyes of painted blue, wide and unwavering. Sarah and Michael, a couple enamored by the Victorian house's intricate woodwork and enigmatic allure, purchased the property at auction, unaware of the shadows lingering from its troubled past. The doll, a silent observer of secrets untold, sparked a chain of events that blurred the line between reality and the unseen. As night descended and the couple retired to bed, a subtle unease settled in the air, the stillness stretching into a haunting silence. With the morning light, the doll vanished from the attic, reappearing at the bedside, a silent sentinel watching over them with its unblinking gaze. Detective Rachel Winters, on a crisp autumn morning, was summoned to the scene of a chilling discovery. In the master bedroom, a woman's lifeless form contorted in an unnatural pose, eyes wide with terror, while the man lay in the hallway, a futile attempt to escape etched in his final moments. The perfection of the tableau hinted at a sinister purpose, as if the victims were mere pawns in a malevolent game. The investigation unfolded like a macabre tapestry, woven with threads of mystery and fear. Neighbors whispered of shadows dancing behind closed curtains and spectral laughter echoing through empty halls. Forensic analysis revealed traces of antique fabrics, remnants of a bygone era intertwined with the present tragedy. Delving into the house's history, Detective Winters uncovered a chilling pattern of inexplicable deaths shrouded in whispers of the supernatural. Each victim had dared to alter the attic space, unwittingly awakening forces long dormant within the walls. A newspaper clipping hinted at a tragic past the dollmaker and his daughter, bound by tragedy and secrets that transcended the veil of death. As the investigation delved deeper, a chilling revelation emerged. The doll, a creation of the dollmaker's grief and obsession, held a malevolent power that defied explanation. Photographs revealed its shifting presence, a spectral figure moving between moments frozen in time, leaving behind a trail of invisible fingerprints and enigmatic residue. A distant relative of the dollmaker spoke of forbidden rituals and whispered legends, of spirits trapped within lifeless forms, yearning for release. The truth, veiled in shadows and half-truths, eluded grasp, leaving only a sense of impending doom lingering in the air. The doll, a harbinger of tragedy, vanished from the station's evidence locker, its disappearance cloaked in mystery and unanswered questions. Detective Winters, haunted by the echoes of the past, retired from the force, a silent witness to the enigma that eluded even the most seasoned investigators. The house, a silent witness to the unfolding drama, changed hands once more, its attic a void of secrets left undisturbed. Yet on moonlit nights, whispers of a spectral presence echoed through the neighborhood, a reminder of the fragile boundary between the living and the dead, the real and the imagined. And so, the doll remained a phantom of the past, a specter of lost souls bound by threads of destiny. its legacy woven into the fabric of a house that stood as a testament to the mysteries that lie hidden in the shadows of memory.
Story 26.
In the stillness of the night, a tiny flicker danced across the baby monitor's screen, like a secret trying to break free. At first, the mother brushed it off as a mere glitch, a blip in the technology's seamless facade. But then the soft crackle of static filled the room, and a voice, barely audible, whispered, "SHHH, go back to sleep." An icy chill crept through her veins, awakening a primal fear deep within her. With a heart pounding like a distant drum, she hurried to her son's room, only to find the crib empty, devoid of the warm presence she had tucked in just hours before. The window stood closed, the door securely locked. There was no logical explanation for the absence of her precious child, except for the stuffed rabbit lying on the floor, its unblinking black eyes fixed on her, as if silently witnessing the unseen. In a frenzy of panic and despair, she screamed until her voice gave out, her cries piercing the veil of the night and reaching the ears of concerned neighbors who summoned help. When the authorities arrived, they found her cradling the stuffed rabbit, lost in a world of anguish and confusion on the nursery floor. Samuel, her 4-month-old infant, had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a void that echoed with unanswered questions. As the investigation unfolded, the mystery deepened, shrouded in shadows of doubt and suspicion. No signs of forced entry marred the sanctity of the home, no alarms were triggered in the dead of night. The baby monitor footage, once a silent observer, now harbored a sinister secret, a voice from beyond, a presence uninvited. Whispers of suspicion swirled around Rebecca, casting a shadow of doubt on her grieving heart. Her husband, Daniel, absent on business, became a distant figure in the unfolding drama. The threads of their strained marriage unraveled under the weight of uncertainty, revealing hidden fractures beneath the surface. And then a glimmer of hope emerged from the darkness, a thread of evidence so delicate yet profound. Microscopic fibers, foreign to the household, clung to the nursery windowsill, hinting at an intruder's clandestine entry from the shadows outside. The focus shifted, unveiling a trail of breadcrumbs leading to a revelation waiting to be unveiled. With each revelation, the truth unraveled like a delicate tapestry, woven with threads of betrayal and deceit. Daniel, returning to a world shattered by loss, found himself ensnared in a web of his own making. His hands, marked by the calluses of a hidden passion for rock climbing, betrayed a darker truth lurking beneath the surface. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, a chilling narrative emerged, a tale of greed and betrayal, of two lives intertwined in a dance of deception. Daniel's secret life, a second family hidden in the shadows, painted a portrait of a man driven by motives darker than anyone had dared to imagine. And in the heart of the storm, the baby monitor stood as a silent witness to the truth, its digital eyes unblinking in the face of deceit. Hacked and manipulated, it bore the mark of a twisted game played by unseen hands, orchestrating a tragedy that defied reason. In a basement shrouded in darkness, a woman named Elaine emerged as a specter from the past, her eyes vacant yet filled with a haunting purpose. Samuel, the innocent pawn in a game of broken hearts, found solace in her arms, a makeshift family forged in the crucible of loss and longing. The courtroom, hushed in anticipation, bore witness to the unraveling of a macabre tale, where whispers of a mother's grief mingled with the echoes of a father's betrayal. The truth, laid bare in the chilling audio of the baby monitor, echoed through the halls of justice, condemning the guilty to a fate sealed in shadows. And as the final gavel fell, casting its judgment upon the perpetrators of a heinous crime, Rebecca and Samuel found solace in a new dawn, far from the shadows of the past. The stuffed rabbit, a silent sentinel of the night's darkest hour, remained locked away, a reminder of the truths that lingered in the silence. For Samuel, the child who would never recall the night he slipped into the realm of shadows, a future awaited, untainted by the ghosts of his past. And for Rebecca, the guardian of secrets too heavy to bear, the baby monitor stood as a silent sentinel, a sentinel of truths whispered in the night, unseen yet ever present. Story 27, the town kept silent about the house nestled at the edge of the woods. It stood solitary, its windows draped in darkness, its porch weary from the weight of time. No one laid claim to it, no memory lingered of its builder. Yet when a band of hikers strayed too near, they glimpsed an oddity names etched into the wooden siding, carved deep like omens. At the list's end, fresh and untouched, was a name unfamiliar to all, until a whisper trembled among them, "That's mine." In the dead of night, a call came through to dispatch. A routine report of trespassing was logged. The voice on the line belonged to Mason Wright, the leader of the hiking group who found his name etched into the abandoned dwelling. Responding officers anticipated mere mischief, perhaps a prank among peers, but what awaited them defied reason. Detective Sarah Keller arrived as nightfall draped the forest. Her flashlight pierced the shadows, revealing the weathered face of the structure. The names 27 in total adorned the eastern wall in a vertical procession. Some had blurred with time, nearly vanishing against the aged wood. Others remained sharp, as if freshly carved. And at the base, Mason Wright, the incision still smelling faintly of sawdust. "I've never set foot here before," Mason asserted, his breath billowing in the chilly air. "I can't fathom how my name came to be known." The inquiry commenced with checks on each listed name. The findings sent shivers down the spines of the detective team. Every name corresponded to a person reported missing over the past 4 decades. Some cases had gone cold, others remained active. Yet all shared a chilling similarity: the individuals had vanished while hiking solo. Forensic experts meticulously documented each carving, noting the depths, techniques, and aging patterns. The oldest name, Rebecca Hansen, aligned with a missing persons case from 37 years prior. Reports recounted a young woman who ventured into the woods and never returned. Search parties unearthed naught but a lone hiking boot beside a stream. Detective Keller delved into Mason's background extensively. His account remained unwavering. He bore no ties to the area beyond his recent hike with 4 college comrades. They had selected the trail at random, guided by an online suggestion. Nothing in his history linked him to the other names on the wall. The focus shifted to Mason's companions. Emily Chen, the group's photographer, presented snapshots taken during their excursion. Upon scrutiny, analysts noted a disquieting detail: a vague figure loomed in the background of 3 distinct photos. The form resembled a tall, slender man, always half obscured by trees. "We saw no one else along the trail," Emily insisted. "We'd have remembered." Detective Keller sanctioned a search of the house's interior. The edifice appeared forsaken, dust cloaked every surface, furniture lay in disarray. Yet in the basement, officers stumbled upon a harrowing sight. Personal effects belonging to the missing hikers were arranged neatly on shelves. Watches, backpacks, cameras, wallets, each labeled with a name matching those outside. Technicians cataloged every item meticulously. Beneath ultraviolet light, blood traces emerged on the concrete floor, stains of years past that someone had tried to erase. Ground-penetrating radar detected no bodies beneath the house, yet cadaver dogs signaled repeatedly at the forest's densest edge. As the probe intensified, Detective Keller observed peculiar behavior from Mason Wright. He reported eerie incidents, whispers outside his flat, footprints in fresh snow leading to his door but not away, figures lurking on the street. A patrol was assigned to guard him, yet Mason's paranoia escalated. A breakthrough came with the unearthing of land records from county archives. The house had belonged to a recluse hunter named Victor Blackwood. Neighbors seldom glimpsed him, recalling brief encounters with an unnervingly tall, gaunt man who shunned conversation. Blackwood vanished without a trace 15 years prior, his disappearance left uninvestigated. Detective Keller secured a warrant to delve deeper into the surrounding forest. The search party uncovered a network of rudimentary hunting blinds strategically stationed along popular trails. Within one, they unearthed a journal brimming with meticulous observations, accounts of hikers, their paths, gear, and routines. The script matched samples from Blackwood's scant documents. Entries progressed from hunting techniques for animals to viewing humans as prey, their behaviors, weaknesses, and methods of collection. The final pages delineated stalking each victim on the wall, detailing how he selected his quarry. A manhunt for Blackwood spanned multiple jurisdictions. Helicopters armed with thermal imaging scoured the forest. Tactical units combed every crevice and cavern, yet the suspect eluded all pursuit. Mason Wright ceased responding to calls. Officers dispatched to his abode found it deserted, with a fresh inscription on his bedroom wall: "The hunter becomes the hunted." The search for Mason extended fruitlessly for weeks. Then, during a secondary sweep of Blackwood's dwelling, forensic technicians unearthed a chilling find. Concealed behind a false wall in the basement lay a workshop with woodworking tools, jars of preservatives, and a freshly carved wooden piece bearing a new name not yet affixed to the exterior wall. Detective Keller recognized the name instantly. It belonged to the chief forensic technician who had processed the house at the investigation's onset. The technician had called in sick that morning, unreachable by phone. Authorities erected a vigilant watch around the house. Cameras documented every approach. Motion sensors monitored for intrusions. The trap was set. 3 nights later, alarms sounded. Surveillance footage captured a figure emerging from the forest, impossibly tall and slender, moving with unnatural elegance. As tactical teams closed in, the cameras briefly lost connection. Upon restoration, the figure had vanished. To this day, the house remains under constant watch. Mason Wright and the forensic technician were never located. The inquiry persists, with fresh resources allocated as akin disappearances surface in wooded regions. The names on the wall have become folklore among law enforcement. Some officers dare not utter them aloud, others shun the case entirely, and local hikers steer clear of the house, fearing that speaking of it might add their names to that grim list, the names unspoken.